Everybody, I'd like to call to order a Town of Superior Board of Trustees special meeting for July 29th, 2013. I would like to welcome everybody here to the meeting, and Phyllis, if you'd call the roll.
Sure. Mayor Andrew Muckle.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Joe Cirelli.
Here.
Trustee Zelia Gogoris.
Here.
Chris Hansen.
Here.
Sandy Pennington.
Here.
Lisa Spumatz. Deborah Williams.
Here.
Town Manager Matt Magley.
Here.
Town Attorney Jeff Parker.
I'm here.
Town Clerk Phyllis Harden here.
Thanks. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight. Trustee Cirelli, second by Trustee Hansen. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. That brings us to item number 4, which is a continuation of the public hearing and adoption of an ordinance approving an amendment to the Superior Town Center Plan Development Zone District Plan zoning in case PD-A-2013-1. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we begin, and then we'll start right up. If you haven't had a chance to sign in, especially if you want to speak, please do so. The sign-up, I believe, is still outside the doors. In terms of public comment, there's mics at the end of both aisles here, and please come forward. The clerk will call several names at a time and approach whatever mic seems to be the most open. It's going to be a little hard to see, but there's a red light up here. Orange is warning, red means stop. We're going to, because of the number of people that anticipated that want to speak tonight, we'll probably keep this at 3 minutes and have a pretty firm rule about that. Just to be clear, the Board of Trustees won't be voting on this application tonight. This will be coming forward again on the 19th is what's anticipated for the final approval, or if final vote, I should say, one way or the other. My request is if you can limit clapping and cheering or booing or whatever, that would be appreciated. There's a strong opinion. Everybody in the room has a strong opinion one way or the other. It's just my request for all neighbors if we could just honor and respect people's feelings one way or the other. And I think that if you can limit public displays of support or opposition, that would be greatly appreciated. Let's see. That brings us then to several trustees have some comments that they would like to have this evening. And Trustee Hansen, do you want to start out?
Sure. Yep. Yes, I wanted to give full disclosure for the public record that I attended a ProStack meeting on July 17th, where one of the agenda items was a discussion regarding some of the proposed civic options within the proposed town center. In addition, I contacted the applicant for the town center project for the sole purpose of attempting to facilitate another meeting between the applicant and ProStack. Neither my attendance at the meeting nor the communication with the applicant has affected my ability to remain impartial during this hearing or to vote based solely on the information presented during this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Cirelli.
I'd just like to disclose, and particularly to the applicant, that as you probably know, I missed the meetings on July 1st and July 8th because I was out of town. I did, in fact, watch the entire meetings on the town website and feel fully informed about what happened in those meetings, and plan to continue in this process unless there's an objection to that.
There's no objection.
Thank you. Trustee Gregoris.
I, like Trustee Cirelli, picked the wrong time to go on vacation, apparently. I missed several meetings, and I've been inundated by emails and catching up over the last month's activities. I have as well watched, and I'm comfortable with all the information that has been presented up to this point. And I also wanted to thank the town of Louisville and Monarch High School for giving us this opportunity to accommodate so many residents of the town of Superior. Thank you for that.
And once again, I'd like to say thank you for everybody who's coming. It's obviously not in the town of Superior. It's a Monday night. And I think no matter what your opinion is, one way or the other, we greatly appreciate your participation in this civic process. So with that, the town manager, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Mayor. Just state for the record that we have received a second referral letter from the City of Louisville with regard to the Town Center application. We've met with their staff on 2 occasions regarding their comments, and we will continue to work with them from this point forward on a good faith effort to meet the terms of the IGA that we have with them with regard to this development.
Okay, thank you. Town Attorney?
I have 3 quick items, hopefully. One of them is, Trustee Gigurst, you mentioned that you've reviewed all the material.
Yes.
And I wanted just to ask the applicant if he has the objection. Do you continue to participate in this matter?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. And then the other 2 matters were our office and the trustees received 2 letters from the law office of Larry Hoyt on behalf of some citizens outlining their objections to the application, and I wanted to make sure that those were included as part of the record because all the trustees received them. And then to note that our office, Ms. Carberry, who's the primary town attorney, filed a response to that, to the first letter, and that is dated July 16th. I want to make sure that goes into the record as well.
Great.
And then the last item, I was asked by the trustees to just quickly clarify the role that they're acting in here tonight. And in the last several public hearings, the board can actually act in 2 different capacities. One's legislative and one is quasi-judicial. And when they're acting in a legislative capacity, they're free to discuss anything about that activity, about that matter with any of the members of the community. They can get their opinions, they can express their opinions, they can respond to emails. But when they're acting in a quasi-judicial capacity, which is what they're doing tonight, which is basically reviewing a land use application and making sure it complies with specific criteria, they cannot basically obtain information outside of the public hearing. So that is probably why many of you are getting responses like, thank you very much for your input. I am going to refer you to come to the public hearing and make a comments there, because that's what they're supposed to do legally, and that's what they have to do to basically maintain their particular role here for land use applications. So they wanted me to convey to you that they're not trying to ignore your emails and not trying to be vague and non-responsive, but that's what they have to do under the law. So that's all I have.
Great, thanks very much. So the process tonight is that the applicant will be giving a short review of what the project is and specifically focusing on the changes from the last presentation. And then we'll open it for public comment after that. So, Mr. Magley, did you have anything else that you wanted to start out with?
No, Mayor.
All right. I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Good evening. I'm Larry Hirschfield, Chief Executive of Ranch Capital. I'm going to hand over to Randy Goodson, who will, as quickly as possible, take you through the changes we've suggested to our prior filing.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Randy Goodson with RC Superior. Thank you all, the Board of Trustees, for all the time you've put into hearing our application, and I appreciate all the members of the audience and the citizens who've participated both at the public hearings and the numerous events that we've had throughout the community to obtain input. Our revised application has reduced the number of units from 1,904 to 1,400 units. We have increased the potential for hotel rooms up to 500 hotel rooms from 300 hotel rooms. We have added a pre-K site of 2 acres based on our meetings that we've had with staff and with the Boulder Valley School District. And the Boulder Valley School District submitted a letter that they are enthusiastic with that provision of a 2-acre pre-K or early childhood education center. That is identified in using the laser pointer to point just south in planning area 3, just south of the Village Green. This is the area that's been identified. And to change the civic space to land available for 60,000 square feet of civic space. In addition, we have added a pedestrian promenade just going north of the town square. The pedestrian promenade added to the town square increases the town square size to 2 acres of public space, and it increases the footage, the lineal footage of the pedestrian promenade to 800 feet. For example, the approved PD's pedestrian promenade was about 740 feet. Putting in the promenade, it takes more than just putting in a wide sidewalk and hoping people use it. We had to take all the town board comments into consideration and figure out how we can make that pedestrian promenade active and how we can drive pedestrian activity to that promenade. Some of the comments related to the entrance of Marshall and McCaslin, as you'll remember. And there were some comments about the trail connections to the BRT station, which is just off of this image, but we know where it is, and it would be in the the top left portion of this image. And so what we'd envision here is an entrance and working with the town where we would evaluate putting in or providing the site for the town hall and other civic space up here, in addition to the civic space that's provided here, so that all the town hall would, at the entrance here, have the ability for the town to have all your facilities right at Marshall and McCaslin to make a really strong entrance. And then, of course, the hotel site would be right there, and we would put in structured parking. This is an alternative. You'll see that we've retained the existing alternative that was previously provided at Main Street, so that we can evaluate both alternatives in working with the town staff, with the public, and with the board to evaluate what would create the best overall plan. But the goal is to try to create pedestrian activity and using trails and pedestrian bridges to bring people to this point here. This is, of course, the Coal Creek Corridor. The Coal Creek Corridor remains the corridor itself is the exact same as it is in the approved PD, with the addition outside of the corridor of fields. Fields have been located, as we previously discussed, where detention ponds previously were located that nobody could walk in or use at all. And so when you add the existing Coal Creek Corridor to the fields that are available, you have a much bigger green belt going through the community. And of course, that's where the Boulder Creek Trail system runs. And it's a unique intersection of the Boulder Creek Trail and the future US 36 bikeway, the Boulder to Denver bikeway that will be running here. So what we want to do is create a gathering of public activities in this northern area, and using trails, drive the pedestrian activity along the pedestrian promenade over to the town square. You'll also note we didn't have to relocate the structured parking, the primary structured parking serving the town square area, but its location is that much more significant, and it's important that it's in the right location. You will note that we added a drive lane because of the pedestrian promenade, reducing the access. There's no driving except for emergency vehicles, so we added a drive lane here that would also serve to connect traffic to the parking structure. The other thing we added is we added flex space, and recognizing that there's a lot of opportunities for the land uses to evolve, and some of our consultants will talk about how the land uses can evolve and have evolved in other places in the Denver area. But we added the flex space to the pedestrian promenade. Our goal, of course, is to continue to get the town square built out so that it's not vacant parcels sitting there too long, and also to have a flexibility in use so that when the buildings are built out, that they're active with some use, as opposed to being limited to just a retail use, for example, where they might sit vacant with posters in the windows. And we like how the pedestrian promenade here really links the restaurant that we previously had overlooking the playfields. So we're really excited about this connection, and the most significant element is that it is a legitimate connection of two active places. And if we're able to bring the civic activities up here at Marshall and McCaslin, they can both serve as a transition point to really connect the community to the BRT and make it a true transit-oriented development, and also have a really dramatic entry off of Marshall and McCaslin with the civic buildings. With that, let me introduce Lou Beaker with 4240 Architects to go through other components of the revised application.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you, Board of Trustees, for taking the time again in the community to let us run through a number of slides. I think Randy to adequately describe the big
So,
changes.
If I
I'll
could,
focus-
you could turn the mic around perhaps, just so that you,
Focus.
yeah, so you can focus on that and people can hear you. Thanks.
Is this better? Focus briefly on highlighting some of the experiential qualities and changes that have been made to this pedestrian promenade and this idea of extending the park experience and the fields through the project town center core and into the plaza. So we'll work through a series of kind of experiences starting from the north and moving down. Some slides that have been previously displayed talk about the quality of this what was previously wetlands and drainage areas to be converted into play fields and rec fields. But really, those activities belong to the community, would be programmed by the community. But how those intersect with the built environment and the architecture starts to be an important critical intersection. And so the building that you're seeing illustrated here, we presented prior, but you know, it's a building that could be a cafe, it could be a restaurant, it could be a sports bar, could have other retail uses in it, or it simply could be a place for parents to watch their kids or meet their kids, grab an iced tea while their kids are finished in the field. So it really becomes a community amenity and building that is linking the parks and trail systems into the town and extending that town center core into this northern edge or intersection with Planning Area 1. Maybe this is a little bit an easier way to see it. Again, and the architecture would be that threshold here. So transitioning from a naturalized environment, that is the Coal Creek corridor, and then into a structured environment of flexible play fields that could be oriented and programmed in a wide variety of ways. Again, a fairly large contiguous footprint to allow a variety of uses. And somewhere right in here, this is an old sketch, is where that community building or that retail intersection and transition into the town would occur. And this is maybe what it looks like in plan view. So a couple ideas that are interesting or important as we start to advance the thinking and evolve this along this northern intersection would be this point where the pedestrian promenade meets the park. We envision that as an extension of a public plaza or a piazza, a small-scale space that would be open with umbrellas and outdoor seating and more casual environment, and then that elevated roof terrace, and then programming that building inside with these community amenities. As one starts to impact or the first intersection between automobiles or vehicular traffic and this pedestrian promenade happens here at where we're sort of bullet 3. And sort of small strategies of material changes, perhaps these are brick pavers or raised areas where the sidewalk and starts to get a little wider, the landscaping gets a little bit more established. And the pedestrian zone is clearly defined as given priority so that the vehicles crossing and moving through this space would be reduced to create a safe crossing for those pedestrians. As we move a bit further south or closer to the town square, we start entering the heart of the pedestrian promenade. What's changed in this version or advanced in thinking since we previously presented was this idea of a meandering lane. So this still is wide enough to allow for emergency vehicle access to move through, but certainly given priority and a bit more of a meandering path that creates these small pockets of pedestrian areas, and you'll see a sketch here in a second, that starts to become an extension of the plaza space or the town square into the north. Secondary things could happen along here, so this length is about 250 feet measured from Road 1 to this new internal drive that Randy just mentioned, so approximately 250 feet. And the scale of the architecture and the buildings within here are this flex zone and a mix of use so that they would be interrupted in mid-blocks with pedestrian and sidewalks that could start to create inter-block or mid-block connections, again, to focus on that pedestrian experience. And these eddies, as we talk about, are programming these public areas, something like this sketch here, whereas people would be moving through this space, coming from town square, down this, really it's an emergency vehicle pathway. The bicycles would be in a dismount zone. There could be different opportunities for events happening along these spaces where they could be programmed as just casual sitting areas. But really this whole experience is one that really belongs to the community, would be programmed by the community, and the uses that would be flanking it or defining it would be a flex zone, here rendered as a residential ground floor, but we'll talk a little bit later about how these ground floors can flex and change over time. As you continue on through this view and start to see back into these sports fields, and that's that retail building with the roof deck that we described earlier. The architecture is starting to be more of a townhome scale, which is contemplating a collage of masonry and stucco and pitched roofs and outdoor decks, so that people are looking down, there's eyes on the street, and there's a lot of community energy and life that happens. You can start to see an impression of some of these paths that turn the corner into these mid-block connections. As one continues further down, closer to the town square, this is that intersection where vehicles would, just right in this area, would be the entrance and exit into that parking structure that would be backfeeding the retail and commercial uses within the town center core. So to access that parking facility would be done in an east-west direction from both sides into a parking structure that would live here. And again, using different strategies of landscaping and starting to eliminate and make small, give pedestrian priority with the width here and the materiality, so that the cars, while they're crossing here, do not impact the safety of the pedestrians living up and down this promenade. Perhaps one of the most significant changes or adaptations in this version, as we've started to revise this experience, is what happens at this intersection, which used to be, as you recall, Main Street was coming down up along the bottom of the image here, in this case rendered as a farmer's market experience. So it was closed off to vehicles in this event, but certainly during regular days or non-farmers markets, vehicles could be parked along here to access the retail. But what happens now is, by eliminating vehicles through this section of the parkway and turning that into a pedestrian zone, we've effectively grown the size of the pedestrian experience, and we've brought this whole edge of retail into the plaza. So we've activated another edge, we've created more pedestrian areas, and what we're trying to do with the landscape is bring the park into the square. So also, as the sun and solar studies proved, this area is the sunniest part of the square, so we want to provide shade in the summer for people just coming to have lunch and hang out with a bag lunch. And then activate that with something like a fountain at the end, so that there's, again, these soft and these calming features that exist within this pedestrian environment that start to create these patterns that connect back both visually to the mountains and to the sports fields, as well as this big intersection into the town square life. As when one migrates, again, this is really an extension of what's been presented to date, showing the idea of a farmer's market. I think we had something like 48 booths here, which in the length here is a significant size for a farmer's market, but also is a true adaptation or reuse of a main street for these kinds of events. Within the square itself, you'll see maybe splash fountains. You'll see, again, areas that are flexible. That could be a band shell for a summertime event. This whole area could turn into an ice rink. The idea of this main open space is to make sure that it's not programmed with too many built-in objects so that it only has one use. I think Fort Collins Old Town Square, I've just heard, is thinking of doing a redo of that because they have too many built-in objects that prohibits flexibility. And then finally, as we start to look at some of the scale of architecture that lives within this, again, here's an example quickly of what that would look like, or the scale of what that Main Street could be like on a farmer's market day. And as we move into the band shell and this idea of the tree bosque and the areas to sit with grass, we want to make sure that the square doesn't become too hard and cold, so they're definitely finding ways to bring in green into that area. And then finally, looking at some of the scale of this low-scale architecture and what we're calling a pavilion. This is another place for cafe or cooking classes or the pottery or the spice shops or any of these kinds of activities. Some of the comments we heard from the board and the community was rooftop terraces are encouraged. So this might be a great place to have a place where people could, again, grab a pastry, grab a coffee or a bagel and look down at the activities of the plaza, see and be seen, but still part of the experience within the overall framework. And a sketch that starts to talk about, kind of as you add those pieces and parts together, really something we're excited about is re-envisioning the character of this and starting to bring the park back into the square and bring the square back into the park by establishing these experiential and qualitative changes and adaptations over the last version that we presented. A little hard to see here. I think one of the other comments we had heard was we'd shown you a big white box and called it a hotel last time we presented. Started to take maybe a harder look at what a hotel might look like. This is the 300-room hotel at the intersection of McCaslin and Marshall. So coming into Planning Area 1, as Randy talked about, potentially a town hall or civic use would be just off to the foreground on the left of the image. Some of the ideas that we're excited about or considering is the establishment of and are consistent with the design guidelines that have been presented, the establishing of a base, a middle, and a top. Some of the comments we heard from the board last time were make sure that this doesn't feel like it's got a buzz cut and there's articulation in roof form. The proposal contemplates a 90-foot height limit, so we want to make sure that we don't just maximize that site and we start to sculpt the architecture, whatever it looks like, so that it starts to cascade down. And as you move from a higher density, more urban environment at that this would be coming from McCaslin, rounding the corner into Town Square, that the roof forms start to cascade down and the architecture scale transitions to the lower densities within the town center core. This would be 36 running off to the right of the image. Parking would be sort of the buffer between the 36 corridor and the hotel. I think this area along the podium or this front would be a conference facility that looks out and tries to create some connections with Coal Creek so that there could be, during events here for weddings or for different kinds of events, the idea of providing direct ground level connections between the creek corridor and the hotel programs that occupy that edge. This is very hard to see. This was one of the things that was interesting as we started to locate this model within the Google Earth, was that as cars are coming from Boulder, leaving and heading to Denver, this portion of the site is actually very hard to see. So the headlights are moving away. So the hotel is really never approached with headlights directly facing the hotel. So you've got to crane your neck even to sort of experience the hotel as you're leaving Boulder. But as you move in and coming from Denver into the Boulder Valley or into the Superior Town Center, what you'll see is not the broad face of a hotel lining the street, but one that's sort of catty corner to it that's starting to establish some distance, as well as some more framed views, both to nature as well as to the Coal Creek corridor. I think the packet might have that a little bit more clearly articulated.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to introduce Tim Van Meter. Tim Van Meter was engaged by the town in 2007 to work on a master plan, the first, and I understand the only visioning process that the town engaged in that covered the entire property that we are proposing.
Good evening again. Tim Van Meter, Williams Pollock. It's my pleasure to be back here again. I've kind of been unearthed to come give a hand here. I'm going to be the bridge, I think, between some past efforts that's gone on and some current efforts that's going on, and I've been asked to give my opinions on it. What was interesting is 6.5 ago, the town of Superior, including I think 4 or 5 of the trustees here, certainly working with Matt and his crew, engaged my firm in a visioning process. And this wasn't a plan where we develop a plan that we author. We basically became your scribes. And if you recall that effort, it took about 9 months total. You know, we probably met with you guys, the trustees, maybe a dozen times. I know we met with Joe and the planning board about equal amount of time. We met with focus groups from the original town. Did you notice I got that right this time? I didn't call it Old Town. 6 years it took me to learn that. And we met with focus groups from Rock Creek. We met with the property owners, and it was an iterative process. And that process became a vision at the end of that time. And so I've been able to kind of unearth and pull out my box of drawings and studies that we did. And I found some interesting documents that I just wanted to alert you back to, for some consistency of thought. And about patterns and about consistency of decision making and things like that. But one of the things I really learned about this was the passion of Superior, the passion and the diversity of opinion that we got back then. Obviously it hasn't changed. But the diversity of opinion, I think, is what also drives projects to be better. So a couple things have happened over this time. We completed our effort, and I believe the last time we met with you was in December '08. I was called back a couple times by the mayor for updates to the trustees about what's happening. But what's interesting, what's happened in the development world during that time, there's been very little going on. And that wasn't so good for a lot of us. But I think it was good to have a breather so people could think about what's important and about creating places that are special. The projects you see coming up nationwide, especially here in Colorado, and fortunately some of them are mine, are the SMART projects. The ones that made sense back before the crash that still make sense today. But things have changed a little bit. The speed of things isn't as fast anymore. And again, I'm going back 6.5 years of this town center visioning. It's quite some time. The markets have somewhat corrected. Developers are still skittish. Money is still scarce. But there is need and demand, and where there's bravery, there's implementation. So a couple things I found here that I thought were kind of interesting to discuss a little bit here. In August 15, 2007, we came back with kind of the preferred option to the Board of Trustees. And we identified, we being the team, you and us, about these ideas of must-haves. And these elements are a main street, a bridge connection across the creek, preservation of the creek corridor and the environmental qualities thereof, a street network, really important. Some call it a grid. I like to call it a network. Trail connections, we've got some good ones to the west of Superior and also under the highway. Structured and shared parking. Get the parking right in all manners. Mixed-use development is critical. And that doesn't mean it's always housing above something. It could be adjacent, next to, but a rich degree of mixes in there. A really tough one that you really wanted a master developer for the entire site. Not somebody who's going to pick off one portion of the property or another, as we tried after the fact, and we saw that didn't work very well. How critical that was. And then this critical mass that I didn't think was achievable, but 1 million square feet of non-residential space and 2,000 dwelling units. So what's interesting, everything I just read off here in 2007, which was the mandate coming from the trustees at the time, this plan accommodates in its current form, the current plan before us, not our plan, but the plan here. It does look a little bit different, but it has a lot of common elements. We determined a list of nice-to-have elements. In other words, wasn't absolutely critical important. Interesting. Ice rink, nice to have, an extension of 2 more sheets. That's eminent right now. I did not understand that coming into this. That is exciting, you guys. The idea of the anchor of the civic use. The idea of a place where music can happen, where plays can happen. I just saw that from my colleague here about where that could happen. The idea of the connection to transit. The idea of the 36 corridor redevelopment that's going on, the opportunities there of getting maybe a tunnel under from this portion of the property so you can walk to that new BRT. It's a huge infrastructure investment that it's critical we connect to. We just saw the hotel conference center. These are all kind of nice to haves. Active recreation facilities, we just saw that. The McCaslin calming. I didn't see a lot of discussion on that, but I see that in the roundabout. We've always talked about how difficult McCaslin was because of the speeding. I know I've reached almost 40 miles an hour on my bicycle on it, but people are blowing by me in their cars. And then the future is green buildings. There's never any promises, but when you have green urbanism, you're going to have green buildings. So I just listed 9 elements of the would like to haves. I've seen this presented in this current plan. That's pretty rich, you guys. That's a good lineup of stuff. It's a healthy mix, and I think there's some assurity of shared values here for success. And I say that because I've been at this for 23 years in various towns and in various places. And the key to that is the longevity of the plan. Master plan should be flexible for implementation because markets change. And that's why I always say it's more about the form than it is the use. Buildings can change over time. Uses can change over time if you get the form right. That ground floor residential can be commercial sometime in the future. And we've witnessed that in our project in Rhino, Fire Clay Loss, that's been awarded with just about every other design award there is. What's interesting about it is it took 10 years for those small entrepreneurs to come in to take those live-work ground floor spaces and turn them into web design parlors. We got a nail shop in there. We got a guy that customizes furniture, you know, in there. We've got all sorts of various little businesses that actually came in there because it took that time, that kind of maturity to happen over time. One of the things we talked about in the same document, and we talked openly, and I don't know if you guys remember this, we talked about risk. You should always talk about risk. What's in it for the town, but what's the risk to the town? It's really important stuff. Number one was property owners don't cooperate. They don't sell, they don't develop. And that's probably going to work for some people here. That's changed a little bit in the last 6 years. You know, that really has. The development plan is contradictory to the community vision. This isn't, on the right is the community vision. We just happen to illustrate it and describe it for you. I don't believe that's the case. I just went through 19 parameters here that I put checks next to. Market changes delays private development. Well, we have all witnessed that. And we've had 5 years of nothing going on. Things are starting to churn back. City must lead on infrastructure. That has not changed. That hasn't changed in any community that's trying to do mixed-use urban centers that are for its citizens. And really, the last one is the one that I think should be embraced by you all up here. It's political. This is a political process. City doesn't stay the course. You hired us, you paid us good money, you worked hard with us, we pushed each other back and forth a little bit, 6 years ago to create this vision document, a plan. We wrote guidelines too. We never completed those guidelines at the time, but you've done a lot of heavy lifting since then. And I'm starting to see the manifestation of this. And I think that's pretty exciting. I think it actually bears the fruit of the labor and the investment the city, the town of Superior invested in, at least in my firm, in that process 6.5 months ago. I didn't unearth how many community meetings. I didn't want to go on ad nauseum how many times we talked about this with how many different people, but if you remember my staff, they were heavily engaged in this process. And it was a beneficial process for us as a firm and as a company too, because it's never about the project. All we want to do is come back later and see it implemented. Sure, we'd like to be part of it, but there's lots of people that are implementators, and I think the folks I talked to today, my colleagues at 4240 and MIG, it's a good team, and this is a good place, and it might be the right time. But the key is that consistency of thought, that consistency of vision, and is this meeting the parameters that were set due to market conditions today? That's where you need that flexibility to come. So is there anything else?
Tim, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Two other points to make is we were asked to confirm the size of the amphitheater in the plan along Coal Creek, and we have confirmed with MIG Winston that the amphitheater is the exact same size in the approved PD plan, so exactly the same size. And then to the point that Tim Van Meter just made regarding the public infrastructure and some misinformation that is floating around, we are taking all of the risk on the public infrastructure. The town is no longer taking that risk. We are building all the streets, the roads, the trails, the parks, and we are hoping to get reimbursed from property taxes that will only be paid from the residents and the business owners that move in to Superior Town Center, to this project. But we are taking all of that risk. We are hoping to get reimbursed at least a portion from the future taxes that will be paid by property owners within the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to close, I want to again thank the board. It's quite impressive the amount of time folks are spending on this project. Thank the residents of the town. Thank the town staff. We have tried to the best of our ability to really engage with the town. We've had many meetings here. We have again, to the best of our ability, try to incorporate a lot of good suggestions we got. And although I'm sure this sounds quite parochial, I'm quite proud of the job these guys have done. I think this is will be a beautiful project if we get the opportunity to build it. And we're committed to building the best project that can be built here. And again, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. This now brings us to the point of the meeting where public comment is entertained. Once again, there's 2 mics at the end of the aisles. The town clerk will read a few names at a time, and when your name is read, if you want to speak, please approach one of the mics that are most available. She has a list of people that have registered that want to speak this evening, and after that, if there's additional public comment, if you didn't indicate that you want to speak, then we'll entertain additional comment at that time. So, once again, the timer is up here. It might be a little bit hard to see. If I motion something to you, that means that you should try to wrap it up if you can. Once again, I'm anticipating a fair amount of public comment this evening. So, with that, Town Clerk.
Rita Dozell, Frank Dozell, Bob McCool, and Clint Folsom.
There were 2 names ahead of me, so I don't know what happened to those people. I'm going to take my time and Frank Dozell's time. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comment on this very important decision regarding development of our town center. A confusing, drawn-out process seems to have been further complicated by this proposal that we just received to review again. The property owner's application for rezoning, along with the developer's, appended an amendment to our approved town center design guidelines, has morphed into a many-headed monster. Now we have a design guideline supplement to the Superior Town Center Plan Development PD Amendment, which is to be read in conjunction with the PD Amendment, and both the document together is set forth in the design guidelines in their entirety. I don't know about you, but I'm confused already. So I'm not sure anymore that we know whether this is in its entirety in the best interest of the town of Superior. Further, it goes on to state that the future final development plan shall comply with the provisions of the Superior Town Code, but only to the extent such provisions are not in conflict with this approved design guideline. This is directly contrary to what was required in our previously approved design guidelines and by a statement by our town attorney in one of our past meetings. And I would ask that we reinstate this requirement that our municipal codes and documents take precedent and prevail over these design guidelines. So in reviewing the July 24 submission, here are some of the critical conflicts that I still see exist. Parks and open space are shown as 13 acres each, which would equate to about 17% of the entire 157 acres. The original approved requirement was for 40% of the entire development to be green space and parks and open space. Town center core building heights primarily are 3 to 4 stories, with some exceeding 4 stories, and the hotel at 90 feet. This was discussed by the town board with an apparent understanding for primarily 2 to 3 stories, with separate approval for any over 4 stories. Town Square with 2-way traffic replaces the approved 2-block pedestrian priority Central Town Center Promenade with 1-way slow traffic. The square only compares in size to the approved town center when Main Street is closed to traffic, and has 27% less linear feet of storefront. Coal Creek Corridor is reduced to naturalized open space rather than the envisioned shady refuge for the enjoyment of residents and visitors. The promenade sidewalk to the Rugby Tavern is nice, but less connected to a true promenade, which is our approved town center. Coal Creek Drive is shown as connecting to what was Avenue B, running past the pre-K school and into the Village Green. This is a problem for me. Coal Creek Drive would be better connected to Avenue C that runs along office space as planned along 36, and with better access to a future Campus Drive bridge. For rent housing is to be allowed. Approved document only allowed for sale housing. Tree grates were reduced in size from 16 square feet from 32 square feet. Smaller amphitheater with no specifics as to who is responsible to build. Town center sidewalks are not specified, but removed were 20 to 25 feet wide requirement. Street trees planted every 40 feet now rather than 30 feet. I'm getting close. Developer will dedicate at least 30% of the land to the town for parks, open space, sports field, public spaces, and public right-of-way. Half of this is streets, 25 acres. So that leaves 25 acres that are supposedly green, open space, sports fields, etc. Board approval is required now for only the 4th floor residential over retail, or in other words, for the 5th story in high-density residential flats. Live work around the village green seems too undefined and unworkable. The general building examples outside the core need redesign, too small, too dense, too ugly. Only residential product that specifies 2-car garages are the Parkside Cluster Townhome duplexes.
So Rita, you're going to have wrap up here quickly.
Have I gone 6 minutes already?
Well, so just to be clear, and I didn't mention this up front, you should only take 3 minutes, and if there's some, this evening, we're not going to accept donating time from other people. So I didn't say that up front, but if you could wrap this up quickly.
Okay, I'm just about done. Another minute. Thank you. So the garage spacing is a real problem. It does not provide for 2-car garage spaces as in the rest of Rock Creek. Provides for the residential in the core center for 1.3 parking spaces per unit, and outside the core, 1.7 parking spaces per unit. This is not enough. Coal Creek Drive should be changed to more logically connect to Avenue C. And then the building heights are still a concern because we need to understand how they're going to be approved, who's going to approve them. Do we have the ability to make changes from the plan that's submitted? Because once we approve that long sheet site plan, it's done. It's in concrete. So let's make sure that we get it right, because we have to get it right. We still have some work to do. Thank you.
If you have written comments also this evening, please feel free to pass them to the dais here, and we can incorporate those into the record.
Hi, I'm Bob McCool, 312 West Coal Creek Drive. This is quite a bit different environment than our little cozy town hall. But I just wanted to speak to you as, one, as a citizen of the town, also as a planning commissioner appointed by the board, and also as the president of the Superior Chamber of Commerce, all in support of this plan that's before you. As a citizen, I'm excited about the opportunity to have a town center like this. The fact that we're actually that it came this quickly, and that this opportunity is in front of us, I think is incredible. As a planning commissioner, we've reviewed this process. We've reviewed this plan. We were unanimously in support of it. I trust that our town staff, our legal staff, and town board will go through that process, that you'll listen to all of us, and all of the great things that are coming out tonight and in previous meetings to make this a great town center. As president of the Superior Chamber of Commerce, we're seeing tremendous support throughout the community, business community and residents alike, who are excited about this plan, who are looking forward to a town center. The Ranch Capital has been gone above and beyond, at least anything I've seen from developers in the past that have developed for us. Meeting with community members, responding to virtually everything we're putting before them to try to create a town center that we can all be happy with. So I'd just like to encourage you to please, vote for this when the time comes. Listen, turn this into a great town center for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Clint Folsom. Tonight, I want to talk to you about the significant investments we've already made in a town center and the importance of finishing the job. 2007, the town hired an architect to create a vision. We heard from him tonight. It was a great start, but it didn't get the job done. In 2011, again, the town said if we want to get serious about a town center, we need to make a significant investment to make this happen. So the idea was crafted to have the town take the lead on creating a PD for a town center with one purpose, attracting a developer. And guess what? It worked. Almost a year of time and about $500,000 of taxpayer money was spent on that effort. This was a big investment for the town in terms of time and money. It was to create a vision. It was not to create the exact plan that we would use. We all knew that there would be a vision that would need to be finalized in this process. I said it last year and I'll say it again. That was a very smart move for the town in 2012 to create that PD. It passed, or it worked, and we have a developer. And to the board's credit, you've already passed 2 resolutions this year specific to Ranch Capital's proposal. And most recently, you just spent the summer of 2013 fine-tuning this good development. Now we're at a critical point. On August 19th, we can either continue moving forward consistent with all of our previous investments that the town's made, or we can stop and potentially lose everything that we've invested up to this point. Fortunately or unfortunately, the list of developers that are qualified to do a development of this magnitude is very small. We're fortunate to have one here now. They've spent a large sum of money to get here with ultimately zero guarantees of anything. And if they leave, I'm afraid that we're done for a long, long time. Word's going to get around of what happened here in the summer of 2013, and it'll be many years before any other developers forgive or forget what happened here. By that point, the PD's old, town board's probably changed to new members, and so everything will need to be redone, probably again at taxpayer expense. I don't like it either, but that's just the realities of the development world. All of you, based on your prior votes, would like to see a town center now, not 10 years from now. Most of the people in this room would like to see a town center now. Even under this current proposal, the core town center that we're all looking forward to is a couple of years away. Development just takes a long time to get out of the ground and become a reality. So it's critical that we make whatever changes are necessary to get comfortable with the plan that Ranch Capital has proposed and move this forward. Everyone you entrust to give guidance on critical decisions such as this is said to move forward. The town staff, Economic Advisor Katie Press, and the Planning Commission voted unanimously. The list goes on, but time is running out. Thank you.
Thank you. We had others, but if not, we can move on to the next batch.
Okay. Jackie Zyrolus, I can't even pronounce it, Cyroloski, Jim Payne, and Rick Zeiss. Sorry.
It's Zivoloski. First time at a town meeting, never really had much of a reason to come, but once word hit the street in the town of Superior that there was a small minority of the town who was attempting to derail our chance at getting a fantastic town center, a grassroots effort has come together to let you all know that we want the town center now, and we don't want to lose this opportunity. Ranch Capital's plan is outstanding, and these little reasons that are being thrown around as reasons to stall can all be worked out, and no reason to not pass it right now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, trustees. My name is Rick Ziss. I'm not a Superior resident. However, during the hockey season, I come to Superior between 5 and 7 days every week. My son is 10 years old and plays hockey for Boulder Hockey Club, and I coach his team. Before or after almost every practice or game, we end up eating a meal in one of the local restaurants, Old Chicago or Panera or another, and shopping at Costco and Super Target and other stores in the area. I gladly spend a great deal of money in the community because of the Boulder Valley Rink and would like to continue to do so. We need the new facility as part of the town center plan to maintain and grow our competitive programs. On most three-day holiday weekends, we have to travel to other areas, such as Littleton or Westminster, to play in tournaments because our current facility cannot handle it. It pains me to spend my money on food, hotels, and entertainment in those areas and see hundreds of families from both Boulder and other parts of Colorado and the USA doing the same when those dollars can be brought here to Superior. To conclude, I think the town center is important for the vibrancy of Superior, and the Ice Ranch Rink will be a major part of that. So I urge you to approve the town center in August. Thank you.
Thank you.
No clap.
Once again, if you can restrain any applause one way or the other, it would be appreciated. So, thank you.
Jim Payne. No.
Okay, I'm seeing no from Jim Payne. So,
Mike Eads, China Leonard, Karen Imberowitz, and Carl Worthington.
Good evening. I'm Mike Yates, 1023 here on Peak in Superior. I wrote this to 5. I'm going to do my darndest to talk fast and get it to 3, okay? I'd like to address some long-term issues to be considered by the board. You've all received all kinds of input from residents, pro and con. Comments I'd heard from those opposed to the project almost always begin with, I'm for the Superior Town Center, but not this town center, because insert reason here. And then they go on to say, but let's just take it slow, take it easy, there's no rush. By the way, for many, that's slang for let's stall, BVI, Cornerstone, and Ranch Capital will go away, and we can keep the status quo. Among my favorite objections actually contradict each other. They are, don't build because we already have too much retail in this town. And the other is, don't build this town center because there's not enough retail in it and we won't generate enough taxes. My first comment is you can't have it both ways. After a thorough analysis, the board is going to have to decide which they feel is best for the majority of residents. But going a step further, Ranch Capital has done an amazing job helping the trustees resolve this issue. They have honestly said they have no crystal ball. They would obviously like to maximize retail because it makes more money for them and for the town. And as you've heard about the flex space, that's how Ranch Capital has made it easier on the trustees. We can see what the market brings and develop the land accordingly. Given that no matter what will be put in there, there will be opponents and proponents. So let's look at where we are. We can wait until sometime in the future and investigate ad nauseum. Personally, I think the board has done an amazing and thorough investigation already. But let's say they decide to wait. Ranch Capital will be gone. Boulder Ice and Cornerstone will be gone. We'll talk about it for another few years, come up with another plan or vision of a Superior Town Center. Maybe in the meantime, we'll have a recession. And then some other builders, maybe 10 or 15 years later, will make an attempt to build in our fractured and divided town. In the meantime, all that land is vacant, without even the current taxes we get from Boulder Valley and from Cornerstone. And then there's a great chance the new builder will use TIF financing and will be in the same position we are today, except for 10 to 15 years behind, without having the revenue on that land from Boulder Valley and from Cornerstone. If we make the decision today, we're ahead and we don't have higher water and sewer fees. It makes no sense not to build down. We have a fantastic developer, fantastic financing with no risk to any of us, a fantastic flexible plan that can change with economics, and a fantastic complex in BVI that will draw consumers from across the nation and will shop at Superior Town Center and Superior Marketplace. We will create a buzz around this country about what a great town Superior, Colorado is. Finally, I would like to thank the board for handling this process the way they have. You have heard Ranch Capital's original plan and took public comment on it. Then you as a board went through the plan, item by item, and incorporated some of your thoughts and the residents' thoughts, and in my opinion, you have made a good plan, a great plan. I'm thrilled and very excited to have Superior Town Center now. It's great for the majority of residents, and it's great for the town. Please vote yes now so we can all enjoy it today instead of waiting for just our grandchildren to be able to enjoy the opportunity.
Thank you.
Who was next?
Good evening. My name is Karen Imburowitz. I am in favor of developing the town center. For heaven's sakes, I helped to envision it. My issues are with the lack of space reserved for retail. There is not enough of a rich mix here. I urge you all to remember that the Bielamenkik property was to be the entire community of Superior's retirement fund. It was to provide income to our town, as the older areas in town require maintenance and upkeep. It was to provide an answer to the question of what happens if and when Costco relocates to another municipality, and to what happens to the town's revenues when the Superior Marketplace eventually matures to the point of not being revenue productive. Should the board vote to approve this proposal as it is currently structured, the town will only be able to require that 80,000 square feet of retail will be built. The Bielamenkik area will not be the nest egg we envisioned. I understand that we don't want new retail to compete with the current Sura. However, the shops which are empty or struggling in the Sura and elsewhere in town are the small shops, not the larger retail stores. The proposal is actually adding more small shops. The revenues from the current proposal come predominantly from one-time fees. While we may want to use these fees to help pay off the SMD debt, the proposal doesn't give the long-term significant income that we envisioned. In fact, with the bulk of the property and sales tax going toward paying off the TIF, we don't see nearly enough income to provide the security we envisioned for this area. The fact that so much land is being reserved for civic amenities rather than medium or large box retail without actually having current residents vote on these improvements is a slap in the face to all of us who have continually voted down these improvements over the years. There is no need for the town to give away such a huge amount of tax increment financing. I say this with confidence, having researched the Bradburn development in Westminster, as well as the Castle Rock development, which was recently approved. $0 in tax financing went to the Bradburn development, and development fees were charged. Less than $10 million went to the Castle Rock proposal. Your constituents are depending on you to be strong negotiators. Please do not give away our future of taxes in the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is China Leonard. I live at 547 South Brandon Court. I've been a resident of Superior for almost 20 years in October. And I too am in favor of a town center. I will admit that I was not excited when we first learned about this development earlier this spring, but it does appear that the developers have been listening, and it does appear that the buildings have become not as dense and not as tall. However, I'm still concerned by the sort of snapshots of different parts of the development. And I don't feel that, I have a good idea of what the total picture is going to look like. We're still hearing about things that are possible, and I think that since we're nearing this vote, we really need to understand more clearly what this is going to look like. And finally, I think Karen stated this case extremely well. I think that the financing for this development seems to be extremely excessive compared to other developments of this type. And it seems somewhat bothersome that the tax dollars are going to be tied up for so many years to pay back a very expensive development as opposed to flowing to the town. Thank you. Very much.
Carl Worthington was next.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize for my small graphic. I didn't get this information about the new plans until Friday afternoon, and trying to respond and bring together some consensus on this. As you know, I've been working on this over 10 years, trying to pull it together, and I think we're very close to reaching a major milestone. Last year, we did get the master plan approved for the PD, and that gave us a beginning of a vision, but we didn't have a developer. And now RC is trying to fit the economic model into our set of clothes. Tonight, I'm technically here as we own property, my son and I, a house here in Superior, as well as I live in Boulder, so I'm really here as a property owner. I have not been hired by RC. have not been part of the planning changes, and I have not been hired by the town, just so that's clarified, because there was some misconfusion on that. But obviously, I'm interested in this because I worked for 10 years holding it together for BLM. I want to, you already have exhibits there, I'll go through them quickly. I try to condense on my board and your graphics there 6 different kind of key issues that are up for final discussion. But the important thing is to remember that we think you're at getting close to the end of the sort of PD approval. And in the FD, final development plan approval phase, you will have a chance to revisit every one of these pieces as a neighborhood. So this is when we see exactly how their promenade is or it isn't, that is not completely relevant. What we want to do is to hold the plan open that you can accommodate that. So the first point that I had in the here in the 6 points, Marshall coming in, whether it comes in straight into the village, that's one option, which I think they prefer, obviously. It does bisect the big park, and I know that's a point that the town is quite interested in. If you didn't want to bisect the park, the outer loop gives you the ability to have the park all together.
Hey, Carl.
Yep.
Sorry. From past experience, I know that you enjoy speaking, so I would try to
Go
wrap it up.
fast. So anyway, well, 6 points. One is to finish discussion, but a lot of that could even happen in final development plan on the Marshall Road alignment if you don't decide before that. Number 2, I think there's quite a consensus, of course, which I favor, that we have a 3-block promenade with plaza, the north-south promenade. I think is a very interesting new element that came in tonight. So I'm pleased with a lot of the suggestions that they're doing developing the plan. A couple minor elbow links on the Cold Creek Road going south. I agree that it should be on the outside, on the east side of the neighborhood that has a center point of the Green Street right in the middle. And then we simply diagrammed a rough cartoon of where Campus Drive might come across, whether it's at the water pipe or it's at the underpass. And the other, you can't see it on this from far away, but it would be nice if there was some way to connect Discovery into the neighborhood. And I think with that this plan could be approved with conditions that either of these options will be chosen. You don't have 10 options. And that you could move ahead then into the next phase. The property would then be purchased by RC, BLM, and the town. You'd get your money back. We would move it in. You'd move it into the FDP phase, and you'd have time then to look at all the details of this. So I think you should move ahead on this if you can. You've done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Phyllis?
Heather Craycraft, English Hopkins, Michelle Beatty, and Brent Bickle.
Am I allowed to speak in Heather's place?
Let's see, okay, that's fine. No, that's fine. Yep.
Pamela Lehman, 2460 Clayton Circle. I want to speak briefly to the recurring comment that Ranch Capital is not really doing their due diligence in reaching out to the community. Ranch Capital has gone above and beyond reaching out to the community and making themselves available. They joined the Superior Chamber earlier this year. They've used it as an avenue to reach out to the community, to the business members that are part of the chamber. They've sent a postcard to the entire town asking them to come to the May 20th town board meeting. They've held multiple in-home meetings to share the information with, and that could be 5 people in the home, that could be 15 people, and these 2 gentlemen still come and are willing to listen to questions and share everything that people are asking about. They've held a happy hour at Old Chicago for anyone that wanted to come. It was in the Daily Camera. Once again, just showing the plans of the project, an opportunity for people to ask questions. They developed a Superior Town Center website that posts all the same documents that you guys see that are on the town website. Both Larry Hirschfield and Randy Goodson's contact information is on there saying, please contact us, share your comments. They participated in the 4th of July event. They had a booth where people could once again come in and ask questions. And they've attended multiple town events, chamber events, trying to reach out to business members and community members and get their feedback. And I think it's clear by the revised amendment tonight that they are listening to people. And I can't pass up the opportunity to also, the recurring comment of, well, that's the developer. Of course they're going to say that. Or they'll build it and then they're going to leave, because I've heard that one quite a bit. Well, there's absolutely no benefit for Ranch Capital to build an unsuccessful project and then leave. It would only hurt their own reputation, and it's so frustrating to hear that over and over again. And again, this is only step one. There's so much more to the process, so I ask that you should at least, let's approve it in August and move on from here. Let's pass step one.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for taking time to listen to me and everyone here. My name is English Hopkins, and I am a resident of Superior, Colorado. A previous homeowner, I managed a homeowners association in Superior for 5 years, and I am on OSAC. I am speaking as a citizen of the town, not as a member of OSAC. I come from a family of landowners who have held land as early as the 1600s, and acreage as high as 6,000, some acreage originally obtained as king's grants from England. I have been exposed to land management in my family and understand the need and desire for all.
Could you step closer to the mic, please? Thank you.
All these families, including the Spicer, Shook, Biela, and Minkick families, to specifically hold on to their private property with the desire to sell for a future investment in their town. I do not doubt that they have reservations about each and every developer who sets foot on their property to build, and that they are our first pair of eyes and ears for this town center. That being said, I thank them for the discretion they have provided in granting this land to Ranch Capital. I also thank the citizens for their precautionary measures and the enthusiasm which has culminated as a result. I have learned that it is important to get to know the developer as both a person and a business, as we are signing on to a long future with them in our community. That future can turn out to be good or bad. We all know this from previous development experience. I do not need to detail this. However, I believe the apprehension behind the confirmation of this developer may be a fear of previous experience. The current developer does not deserve the critique of past mistakes by previous developers. Randy Goodson is engaging in a business deal, and with this come requirements he must fulfill on his end to pursue a successful business deal, not just engage in a development idea. Our opportunity lies in the fact that we can negotiate with him what we would like, hire him, and then we have acquired his experience to create our dream. No matter what happens in order to develop a town center, we will have to work with a developer. As a town, our responsibility lies in confirming he is credentialed, trustworthy, skilled, and exemplifies successful past experience. Hearsay and gossip are unreliable and unprofessional. Randy Goodson has specific experience with the creation of the Eastern European large-scale community and understands the appeal of the open plaza. A perfect example of this model is the Piazza San Marco outside the Doge's Palace in Venice, Italy, with its open square, dense town center, and residential marketplace, where I have been for coffee, to purchase beautiful Italian lace, and watch children feed the birds in the square, because they have a really bad pigeon problem. There's also a promenade there that travels to the water for the water taxi, as well as boats you can take to Greece. Randy Goodson has also stated he would like possibly to create a LEED neighborhood development. This is stated on the United States Green Building Council website as thoughtful neighborhood planning that can limit the need for automobiles and their greenhouse gas emissions, mixed-use development and pedestrian-friendly streets, encouraging walking, bicycling, and public transportation.
I'm just giving you the signal to try to wrap up.
I'm almost done. Green buildings and infrastructure also lessen negative consequences for water resources, air quality, and natural resource consumption. The character of a neighborhood, including its streets, homes, workplaces, shops, and building spaces, affects quality of life, green developments, respect historic resources, and existing community fabric. They preserve open space and encourage access to parks. I have spoken directly to Randy Goodson and Ranch Capital to confirm that visions such as these are going to happen. These are just two, as Randy calls them, place-making items, which in my opinion define true, reliable, trustworthy qualifications for creating a town center which belongs to Superior. A town center
would that
which
be
can,
okay place to wrap up, or?
I've got
or we
a little
could.
bit.
Okay.
So, a town center which can be award-winning as Goodson's other developmental and superior specifically to our town, making us a true gateway to Boulder Valley.
Okay. So why don't you perhaps
There's
that'd be.
one more page.
Well,
Hold on.
you're way over time, so I just want to.
Maya Angelou said you did
So-
what you knew how to do, and when you knew better, you did better. In the past, development
Could you-
decisions were
would you-
made as we, a community, have learned and held ourselves accountable.
We'd be
This is
happy to take.
self-evident in the concern shown by all citizens of this community. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Once again, we're trying to stay on time as much as possible, just due to the volume of comments.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Beatty, and I live at 844 Sunlight Way. I've lived in Superior for the last 15 years. I wanted to speak briefly in support of the current proposal for the Superior Town Center. As the former executive director of the Superior Chamber of Commerce, I learned firsthand how important having healthy, thriving businesses are to our community. I know many of you on this board are just as committed to a vibrant business climate. And while I feel it's important for us to talk about what we want in a town center, it's also important for us to talk about what we need. We need this project. We need a larger residential base to help support our town center and other existing businesses in Superior. We need great anchors such as Boulder Valley Ice, bringing people to our community from around the region and even the nation. People who will be staying in our hotel, spending money in our shops, and eating in our restaurants. There's a certain economic reality to all of this. The status quo is just not sustainable. That's why I'm asking you to move this project forward now. Many supporters and I have been impressed with the outreach and transparency we have witnessed by the developer. We've watched them talk to groups such as Mod Moms and the Chamber Leads Group. We've seen them talking to residents of the 4th of July. We've observed them talking to our citizens at several neighborhood meetings in clubhouses and private homes throughout Superior. During all of this, they have patiently answered every question and took suggestions and feedback from Superior residents. I've waited 15 years for a developer to come forward to build this project. Please give Superior what it needs and vote yes on August 19th.
Thank you.
Good evening, Brent Bickle, El Dorado Drive. Thank you all for, again, for holding this public comment session. We've heard and will hear many reasons tonight for a vote in approval of the Superior Town Center at the August 19th meeting. I wanted to speak about what I see are the financial benefits of the STC proposal. The information I'm commenting on is from the June 10th financial summary, which is on the town's website, superiorcolorado.gov. Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 is the town's water utility. Everyone who gets a water bill from the town is a part of Superior Metropolitan District, or SMD1. What I discovered at the presentation is that the utility currently carries a debt of $25 million. In 2013, the town budget lists that the SMD1 has 3,615 accounts. So if you take $25 million divided by 3,615, it results in a debt of $6,915 per account. Currently, the town reimburses the water district for the interest on the debt, which is $1.5 million per year. As I understand, no payments are currently being made towards principal. Although, as homeowners, we're not personally liable for the debt, it still needs to be paid in some way. This will probably be a combination of payments from the town and large increases in our water bills. In fact, large increases in our water bills are projected in the financial summary presentation from June 10th. Fortunately, because the water system was designed to handle double the capacity of Rock Creek, there's plenty of capacity available for our new neighbors at the Superior Town Center. The great thing is that with approval, the Water District is estimated from the financial summary to receive $38.5 million in one-time fees for the new development to connect to the town's water system. Not only will these funds pay off the $25 million debt, the rest will be available to ensure that we have plenty of water for the future and to be able to comply with expensive new government regulations. This means that we, as users of the water utility, get the debt paid off and limit future rate increases. In exchange, the developer issues bonds for new metropolitan districts that we are not liable for. So, even if the development would fail, which I do not believe that it will, I don't see how it would be much different than Calamonte, which is the stalled development on the southeast corner of Colton and McCaslin. That development went into receivership, and what happened? We have fields of grass and some roads that are great to teach your teenagers to drive on since nobody uses them. When that development went under, it didn't raise my property taxes, it didn't raise my water bill, and neither will the very, very unlikely failure of the Superior Town Center. Again, thank you so much for committing all the time and effort over this issue over the last few months. Although it's been a lot of work, I think you've done a great job in getting us to the current proposed plan, which I think is fantastic and by far, the best proposal for this property that I have ever seen in my 16 years of living here. I'm very excited about it, and I hope that you are as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Roll, Craig Prestisator, Karen Geiger, and Debbie Yates.
I am Paul Rohr, resident,
Could you
1335.
Maybe you could move the mic up just so it's pointed up your direction. Yeah, sorry.
Paul Rohr, 1335 Stoneham Street, resident of Superior for 6 years. I'd like to just sum up by saying that this really needs to get off the ground, and I think that the commercial use and the field usage is going to be a huge benefit to Superior. There's no time putting it off for another 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Craig Prestisator, 558 East Gilway, Superior, 16-year resident, 9 years on Planning Commission. I was around and worked with Mr. Van Meter when we were taking little boxes of buildings and moving them around on a board. This is Cabela's, this is IKEA, and designing the project back then. And went through the process with Oz and Carl Worthington. I think when I look at this project, and I tuned out for a while, guys. When I left Planning Commission, I tuned out, but I came back in with fresh eyes and looked at this project, and there's a lot of things that you can see there that we talked about throughout all that time. And during that time, I asked Mr. Worthington, I said, now, are we designing this? Is this up to us? And he said, no, this is a template. This is a vision. And I think we have that vision right there. I think we need it for the economic viability of Superior. We need the bodies to shop at our businesses, and we need the businesses so we spend our money in town instead of in the surrounding area. So I think this is a great project and does meet many of the visions that all of us put together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Geiger, 535 South Snowmass Circle. I'm a 16-year resident of Superior. As many of you know, I created and organized over 20 townwide garage sales over the last 10 years. I've been on the Superior Chamber of Commerce. I've been a member for 10 years and on the board of directors for 8, co-president for 2. And just to give you an idea that I just didn't get off the train yesterday or whatnot, I've attended most of the board meetings. I was I'm going to say a little bit instrumental in encouraging that we have the finance presentation by asking Mr. Magley that we could do that specifically on finances on June 26th. I was there. And I believe that no plan is going to be 100% is going to please everybody 100%. I think we've seen a lot of revisions. I've watched the revisions, and the developer, Ranch Capital, listened to what the trustees have said, watching those board meetings, and I believe that they should be considered as a worthy and trustworthy partner for the town going forward in these initial stages because they've been responsive. I would encourage the trustees to support this initial phase. I would hate to see us lose a very great amenity to our community, Boulder Valley Ice, and the growth and the potential it has to bring 1.5 million visitors to our town and spend dollars in our town is a phenomenal thing to envision. So thank you very much, and we hope we will see a support from you on August 19th.
Thank you.
Debbie Yates, 1023 Huron Peak. Thank you to you, the trustees, for taking all your time and emotional energy to be fair with this process. I cannot imagine how difficult it is to be caught between all these different positions. Mike and I moved here 4 years ago to be near our kids and grandkids. 4 years is long enough to know the community, but short enough not to be biased. We had our concerns regarding Superior, especially as an empty nester. People said, you know, it's a very young community. There is no downtown, no gathering area with retail, restaurants, businesses. I went on the Superior website and saw there was a 2007 plan for a town center development. It was exciting and reassuring to me to know that there was a plan for a community downtown and the diverse housing to support a town center. A year ago, I started attending the land use meetings and then the proposed town center meetings. I had my concerns. I listened to both sides through the process. I did my research and gathered information. I grilled the developer, the opposition, and the trustees. I was also surprised at how few residences were at those meetings when such a big decision was proposed. But after going through all the meetings and questions, I'm an excited supporter of the town center development. Changes have been made to the proposal that have made it even better. We have had many doubters who are now strong supporters after doing their homework and research. It is unusual to have a large group of residents who are a supporter of a developer and a project. What I've been hearing is that the phrase diversity of housing is an issue with residents of Superior. This should be a non-issue, given that the development concept and plans have been on the books for 15 years. I founded the Moms of Moms grandmothers group. This has been a great way to meet other empty nesters. I did not live here when my kids were young or meet parents, even though they both live here now. In this large group, there are only 5 residents who live in Superior. Superior is not an option for grandparents because of the lack of housing to meet their needs yet. One of those members is selling to downsize, but there is no place in Superior for her to go. Superior does not have a community to meet the needs of the over 55 residences. According to ARP, for those of us who are over 55, the requirement is a safe, one-story or elevator building, aging amenities, walk to retail, restaurants, doctors, transportation, and no maintenance, the ability to shut the door. When your kids have moved out, you want to be in the same community where your friends and your kids live. It doesn't mean age-restricted, just accessible. We will have condos, townhouses, cottages, brownstones with elevators if this project is passed. Your diversity of housing will also include options for young professionals that work in Boulder or Denver who choose to live in a vibrant downtown Superior. You as trustees know these young residents who came here 20 years ago are now thinking of downsizing. There are trustees, opposition residents who have moved to Broomfield, Louisville, Boulder. We are losing a whole large demographic of talented, affluent, community-involved residents. Other towns are the beneficiaries of this exodus. The diversity of housing should not be ignored. The board has already voted down a recent proposal for patio homes. The neighbors wanted a commercial strip mall instead. Maybe another NIMBY issue. I believe and have heard from other urban planners that this process has been contentious, and it is unlikely that another strong developer will be willing to approach our town for years. The project will not happen then, and I will be still going to Lucky Pie and Sweet Cow in Louisville with my grandkids. So much for downtown Superior. Thank you so much again for your fair evaluation.
Thank you.
John Barkmeyer, Lynn Bickle, Sonia Crichton, Mike Crichton.
I'm John Barkmeyer. I'm a resident of Boulder, but I'm very much in favor of this project. Not only do I think it's a great development and going to make a very vibrant community here in Superior, but very much in favor of the athletic fields and the ice center. I think it will not only provide some much needed facilities for everybody in the county, but it will also bring a lot of business into the town of Superior. So I'd like to urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sonia Critton, 685 East Wiggin Street. I just wanted to clarify some things that were put out on a brochure that was circulated by the developer so that we can come to at least some factual information here, because when I was passing out brochures on the way in here, I asked people, do you live in Superior? The people who had the shirts on, not even half lived in Superior. They're from outside of our town, so they're not going to be impacted by our overcrowded schools or the fact that the kids can't get on swim team right now. As it is, and there's no pools proposed. It may not be a big deal to people who live in Boulder that our kids are going to be in trailers. Boulder Valley School District does say that they can accommodate these kids, but they aren't going to be in Superior. All of these kids are going to have to go to school in Louisville. That's how they're going to be accommodated. That's 3,000 car trips a day if you have 2 people per unit and 1,500 residential units. So my objection to this is I think there's too many residential units, too little diversity in terms of the housing. They've scraped the vision of the original sellers and eliminated the elder care housing, which would not impact the schools and the pools. And frankly, the brochures are just not factual. And I want to let everybody know, Boulder Valley Ice can happen independent. There's a great article out from the Boulder Daily Camera that shows in 2012, the town gave 10 acres to Boulder Valley Ice. Boulder Valley Ice can build tomorrow. There is nothing that precludes the town from building a town center or building the ice. This is a $145 million tax incentive to developers based on residential, and that's unheard of for residential developers to get that kind of assistance. And I know as a developer myself, I put 30% down, I show my resume, I show my educational experience, I have my background in terms of previous projects, and I have skin in the game. I put 30% down. And guess what? I have no problem getting financing from a bank. Why do we have to have tax incentive financing? Think about it. We can get our town center, we can get the ice rink. We don't need $150 million worth of residential, low-income, small, dense housing. That's just, I don't think it's necessary, but people are overlooking that, especially people who are wearing these shirts and don't live in our town, and you're not impacted by our pools and our schools. And there's 5 pages on trash, not one word about schools or kids in this whole proposal.
Once again, if we could hold the applause, I'd appreciate it.
Lynn Bickle, Eldorado Drive. I've been a resident of Superior for 16 years. It's time to get this center built. I think Ranch Capital has done a wonderful job of talking to residents, talking to the board, making the changes that need to happen. You have to have housing, you have to have retail, you have to have commercial, and they have put all that together to make this a great center. They've made wonderful changes. We definitely need more fields in Superior for the kids. We also need that the ice rink wants to expand to keep the kids playing hockey here, also to get new kids playing hockey here. Cornerstone Orthopedics wants to combine all their offices, bring in their physical therapy, and an urgent care center. Those are wonderful assets for Superior to have. You know, they've set aside land for a pre-K school. You know, they have done so much to make this happen for Superior, and it's time to get it done. So I just hope you guys all vote on the 19th to pass this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kirsten Germindy, John Sales, and Tracy Lundmark.
John Sales, 1305 South Pitkin Avenue, President of the Board of the Boulder Hockey Club and BV Ice Hockey Foundation. I'd like to quickly comment on that. I'm wearing a shirt and I live in Superior. And there's a lot of people wearing shirts in this audience that live in Superior. But there are a lot of people that spend a lot of time in Superior, that work in Superior, that are affiliated with BV Ice. So I just want to make that clear. Also, and I know I don't have to tell you guys this because you were the one that helped structure the deal. Yes, you were going to give us 10 acres contingent upon the new facility. Unfortunately, due to floodway and CDOT expansion, we couldn't do it. So I just want to clear that up. You know, the 10 acres is now no longer on the table because of that. Thanks to Ranch Capital, they're including us in the town center, and there's going to be some exciting events and great things, hockey tournaments, etc. I'm a little off guard because I do have written comments. I'll be quick. I was thinking it was going to be 5 minutes, so I apologize. Andrew, if you have to cut me off, I understand. Over 10 years ago, and actually I'm going to say one more quick thing. When someone asks where we are from, and you say Superior, what do they say? Okay, I'm going to get back to that. Over 10 years ago, the Boulder Valley Hockey Foundation and the town of Superior began a great relationship to support the growth of youth hockey and our skating programs in our community. Thanks to the town's support, the Boulder Hockey Club has been able to expand our youth and adult programs and build one of the top youth hockey programs in the state of Colorado. Thanks to you guys. Thanks also to the many donations, loans from community members, and George Menkick. He was the owner of the land that we are currently on. We built a temporary structure that changed the lives of many kids in our community. We leased this land from George Menkick, paid property taxes, paid utility bills, and proudly represented Superior, Boulder Valley, and the Bison on our chest. We are very, very proud of our hockey directors, coaches, employees, volunteers, our parents, and all of the kids that walk through our door every day. As a board, we are also proud to say that we paid back all our generous lenders back, some taking less than they lent us, and they did so we could continually be financially viable. And we thank them to the core to this day. But here we are again. We need to expand. Our adult league's at full capacity. Our adult lunch league has a 4-year waiting list, and we had to send families away in recent years because our teams were full. After listening to the town of Superior's economic advisor, she mentioned a number of factors that are very important to you making this decision. One of them was you need an anchor. We are proud to be that anchor. We are honored to be the anchor to the new town center. We have a committed investment group and have designed a state-of-the-art private facility that will continue to make Superior proud. As an anchor, we have already helped attract 2 incredibly respected groups, Cornerstone Orthopedics and Impact Sports. We've also attracted the Rocky Mountain Rough Rider AAA program and the Lady Rough Riders. Hopefully we can help attract more and more. Remember, this is 2.5 rinks. This facility will have turf for soccer and lacrosse. Impact will have a basketball court, volleyball courts, batting cages, and a weight room. It will be one of the finest sports facilities in the country. It will also have a community room for Superior residents, a restaurant, a pro shop, splash zone, and other amenities. It's not just about hockey. Our new facility will be designed to...
I'm giving you the signal to try to wrap up as soon as possible.
Our new facility will be designed to host national tournaments that will bring economic dollars to Superior. According to Luke Taylor, our developer, our new facility will generate approximately $25 million in taxes and fees over the next 20 years. The Cornerstone Medical Group and Impact Sports buildings on our campuses will also be significant contributors to new tax revenue. After recent facts that have been spread through our community, many have started their own due diligence and have looked into this project even further. We're seeing more and more people over the course of the last week flip-flop and actually start to see the benefits of this great town center and our facility. One of the most important meetings I attended was with Paul Niles, and thanks to Paul for all his hard work and due diligence, and we appreciate all of the work that all of you are doing, the staff is doing, and so forth. At the end of the day, getting back to my original comment, when someone asks, where are you from, and you say Superior, what do they say? Well, today I bet they say we're Superior. Tomorrow, with our new town center and this incredible new facility, they will all know where we are from. My family and BVI supports the Superior Town Center and Ranch Capital. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Lundmark, and I am the staff accountant for Boulder Valley Hockey Foundation. Since I work in Superior, I frequent the local businesses each week. I have a professional relationship with places such as Target, Costco, PetSmart, and the local restaurants, and I bank here in Superior. When I spoke with the bank manager last week, he had expressed his concern for both his little bank and for the local small businesses that he's trying to help if our town center is not approved. The decision will affect all of the local small businesses that are struggling to obtain enough volume to survive. Much of the current volume is related to the existence of BV Ice, and I fear that if we do not get the town center, we will have to move out of the Superior area. Since I spend much of my time in Superior, it makes sense for me to visit the local business, and that's why my customers do as well. Countless times they drop off their kids, wave to me, and say, "I'm going to Whole Foods, be back in an hour." Or, "We're going to Old Seas, send Johnny over when they're done." Now on game day, it's a little different. They all stay at the rink cheering their kids, and then they head out to celebrate lunch or dinner, and many times in Superior. We all love being here in Superior, and while I know the foundation will find a home for us, it won't be in Superior if the town center is not approved. I had hoped to move to Superior in the next year or so, as I have come to enjoy this community and feel it's a good place for my family. As the accountant for Boulder Valley, I must correct some of the misinformation regarding our relationship with the town of Superior. Our foundation pays a lease each month, originally to the former owners of our land, and since the town purchased the land, we pay it directly to the town. In addition, we have always paid tax, property tax, for the building and for the land. This number is well over $100,000 directly in taxes. We pay our utilities to the town each month. We have not asked for any special consideration from the town of Superior with any of these expenses. Our rink is not subsidized at all by the town. It is enriched from our program. Our rink has always and wishes to continue to contribute to the prosperity of the town of Superior. We hope the trustees want to maintain this relationship as we need a new building. Our move from the current building is inevitable. Please pass the revised plan development so we can continue to prosper together for decades to come with programs that turn our children into responsible young adults. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kirsten Grumendi. I'm a 13-year Superior resident. In 2009, I had the pleasure of consulting with the town on a public relations effort. And that was the year that Louisville was granted the distinction of America's best place to live. And I remember my team and I poring over that article saying, how in the world could Louisville be #1 and we don't even crack the top 10? So we're going through the article that I have in front of me, and it says, because they have 30 miles of trails, we have to come into Superior to get to most of those trails. It's because they have some of the best schools. We have #3 and #8. We have higher ranked schools than Louisville. It says because you can access 8 world-class ski resorts. You have to drive through our town to get there. How can they be #1 and we don't even crack the top 10? The top of the article, it says, if you go downtown Louisville, ice cream, there's hamburgers with your family, street fair, music. It's why Louisville is granted that year and many years past. And we all know if you cross the highway, property is a lot more expensive. It's a lot more expensive when there are a lot more people that want to live in your community. That's obvious, we all know that. When national press comes in and writes about how great your town is, more people know about it. They want to come there and live. They are offering us a golden opportunity that I think we should seize because it will increase the economic well-being of our community, and that helps our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't read the last name of the next person. It's Tony S.C.L.A.W. And Dan Bruder. Wendy Shefty. I'll stop there.
Hi, my name is Tony Stale. I'm an original investor and donor in the current ICE facility. It was always a temporary ICE facility. I'm also a former board member of Boulder Valley Hockey. Approximately 10 years ago, we had a vision, and the vision was to bring kids into a facility that would be permanent, and we started with a temporary facility where hundreds of kids and adults enjoyed. The town of Superior believed in us at that time, and we were very thankful. Boulder ICE at Superior has exceeded all of our expectations. As one of the original note holders, all the notes have been paid, and we are very appreciative of that. I'm also president of the Rocky Mountain Rough Riders and the Rough Rider Hockey Club. We have 2,000 youth hockey players across the country in our club. Our USHL team is headquartered in Cedar Rapids, and it's a feeder system to college and National Hockey League. We look forward to having the Rocky Mountain Rough Riders, the Lady Rough Riders, and our junior team, the Western States Hockey League Rough Riders, as tenants in this new facility. We are committed to bringing national showcases, regional tournaments, and look forward to it. We've been a good citizen, and we look forward to many more opportunities with the city. And we'd like to thank Ranch Capital. And also, as John mentioned, it's not just a hockey facility. We will have indoor turf for lacrosse. We have a tentative agreement for swimming, and it will be one of those facilities that we'll all be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Wendy Shefty. I'm a 16-year resident of Rock Creek. And I just want to say I was originally for the town center when it was back last year, and then the first proposal by Ranch Capital I was against. And now that I've seen some of the changes, I'm coming around, and I think it's looking a lot better. But I do want to caution you that the schools are so overcrowded right now. My daughter wanted me to make sure that you guys knew that she's had to be in portables when she was at Superior Elementary, and the same for my son. Then when she was at El Dorado K-8, and then here at Monarch, she has had her schedule disrupted twice because it had to get changed because the classrooms were overcrowded. And so I just caution you to please look into that carefully because it really does impact the kids.
Thank you.
Hi, Jeff Allman, live on Jerosa off El Dorado. When I first heard that, I moved here 2 years ago, delighted to be near my daughter and grandkids. And when I heard the name Superior, I thought, great, I can now honestly tell my friends I'm superior to them, or at least I live in a superior place. And although there's a lot of great people here, Superior in many ways, the town is rather bland. It's almost personality-less because there's no there. It's like, I think Gertrude Stein said about Oakland years ago, there's no there. Well, there's no there in Superior. My wife also said something, what about because we have 2 teenage kids, who are working part-time, but not in Superior, elsewhere. There'll be a lot of jobs for kids here. And I think that's terrific. There'll be a lot of personality, a lot of things to do here. But with such wonderful people, there's no great place to congregate. You almost have to be rude and stop people from walking and saying, hi, you kind of look interesting, want to talk. That's okay for me because I'm from LA and we're expected to be a little politely rude. But the demeanor here is different, and I'd really like to see some personality here. Superior? Potential? Great. Potential? Great.
Thank you.
My wife said I shouldn't talk because I would alienate people.
Thank you.
Ricardo Germendi, Ryan Kirkman, Heather Calhoun, sorry.
Hello, my name is Ricardo Gramendi. I'm from Superior. That's why I'm wearing this uncomfortable T-shirt. I've lived here for 13 years. When I first moved here, I had a girlfriend in tow. Now I have a wife and 3 kids who are all active in athletics and the like, and hopefully more in the future. The plan that we've seen and it's been modified several times by listening to residents has been fantastic, I think. It sounds like it's an overdue process. Since I've lived here, let's see, I've seen Boulder develop their 29th Street Mall, a fantastic bike park. Louisville kind of revamped their downtown area. Broomfield has built a mall. They've all done a little bit of growing up. I'd like to see my town do a little growing up too. So please approve this project.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Heather Cahoon. I'm a 13-year resident of Superior. I've been involved with BV Ice for 10 years. My 3 kids have all learned to skate there. My husband plays hockey there. My kids now play hockey there. I learned to skate there 2 years ago, but I can't play hockey there. I actually have to go to Westminster or Avada to play hockey. I have seen, through 7 years of watching my kids at the rink, every week see parents drop their kids off and go shop at Whole Foods, Costco, Target. I guarantee you every family, every week does that. On Saturdays, game days, we have visiting teams come in, somewhere between 8 and 16 teams every weekend come to Superior to play a game. Those families drop their kids off, may go shopping the hour before the game because we have to be there an hour early so the kids can get ready. And then, personally, every time we have an away game, I eat near the rink. So those families often come here and stay and eat in our local area after games. If we lose BV Ice because the town center does not go through, that is all gone. If we get the town center, that doubles. And actually more than that, because the Rough Riders will be fewer local families, more families coming in from Westminster and Arvada that don't normally live here, wouldn't normally shop here, that can do that. I think this is the right chance to do this. Otherwise, we're going to lose a tax base we've never had that is helping all of the towns, all of the businesses in Superior right now that will be gone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Kirkman. I've lived in Superior for about 10 years with my family, and I'd like to read an email that I sent to the town board and make it a part of the record. It says, members of the Superior Town Board, I realize there are many complex and interrelated issues for you to consider as you evaluate the developer's proposal for the Superior Town Center. I've attended many of the meetings, and there is one issue that I have not heard explained by the developer, the town board, or discussed during the public input sessions. The question is, what is the developer's plan regarding the use of Superior's 2 community outdoor pools? Here's an initial list of related questions. Is there capacity at the current pools to accommodate the occupants of an additional 1,400 residences? This seems doubtful since there have been a number of instances where people were turned away because the pool is at capacity. And there's 2 different aspects to capacity. In the South Pool, there's a total limit of about 195 people, and that's also dependent on how many lifeguards they have on staff. So if there's 200 people there, it requires 8 lifeguards, and to have them on staff on a regular basis, which we haven't had to do in the past. So that drives incremental cost, which leads to my next question. Would a 3rd pool, indoor, outdoor, or both, be considered as part of the town center development? If so, how would the construction and maintenance of the pool be financed so there is no incremental tax or HOA fees to the current residents of Superior? And I understand that's one of the eminent conditions of the proposal is there would not be any incremental additional costs of any type, whether it's tax, HOA fee, to the current residents of Superior. If a new pool is constructed, would the current residents of Superior have use of the new pool? If a new pool is not constructed, is there room to increase the size of the north or south pools? And if so, How would the construction and incremental cost of the maintenance be financed so there's no associated increase to tax or HOA fees for the current residents of Superior? And I want to be clear that I realize there are many more important issues for you to consider. This is a very complex issue. This is way down on that list. But to me, it's representative of the concerns that I have of potential negative impacts to the people that have lived here for a long time and have a vested interest in the nature of our community rather than people that just spend a couple hours on Saturday because their kids play hockey. And I think the pool is an example, and even of greater concern, which was mentioned earlier, the impact of the schools. And that has a long-term and multi-generational effect. So I appreciate your time and your effort to consider this wisely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Pauley, Rich Bircher, Malcolm Fleming, Chris Lochran.
Hi, I'm Lisa Pauley, and I've been a resident in Rock Creek for about 16 years. First, I want to say I really appreciate the time that you guys have taken to review the plans and to listen to all of the comments by the members of the community. There have been a lot of comments made about those to date that have questioned this plan. And I hope that what everybody would take into consideration, that based on my involvement to date and everything that I have watched and witnessed, a lot of these concerns and opinions that have come forward have actually resulted in many revisions that the developer has now taken into account. Some of those revisions include increasing or setting aside acreage for a school. That was not in some of the original stuff that I saw. A less dense residential area, so that is now being looked at. Adhering to the provisions of the Spicer-Shuck annexation agreement. In the very early stages, they were totally setting that aside and saying, hey, let's put hardscape in there. Let's put tennis courts and all kinds of stuff like that. Thank goodness the Planning Commission came forward on that and upheld that. They're maximizing now the Coal Creek corridor and how to really use that nature that we have to its full extent. Furthering the pedestrian access to this, what we're seeing tonight is a little bit more of that. Improving the actual access into the town center and greater focus on retirement living. If it were not for the many people who have come forward to date, this thing was moving extremely quickly back in the early stages. And I think the comments that have come to date have really added to and made for a better plan. So I want to thank everybody who has done that. What is still unclear to me is what the developer is really covering in some of the amenities. I heard Randy say tonight something about, I want to be clear that the amphitheater and many of these things the developer is covering. In some of the earlier meetings I was hearing there was $10 million set aside that would go for some of these things. I heard at one point in time, no, we're not putting in the amphitheater, that's up to the town. I hear a lot of comments about the town needing to program many of these amenities. I don't know what that means. I don't understand what the full cost is to the town to fully implement all of these amenities that I think get a lot of the residents excited. No one is against BVI. We're all excited to have BVI here and what the other folks that they can bring into commercial. So, and again, still evaluate this whole TIF. This is a long tail on this thing. So I think it's till 2039 before the city or the town of Superior begins to see some of the property taxes coming back to the town. And because all of those property taxes go back to paying for the TIF, to pay the debt off. So I would ask that you look at that. And again, thank you for the time that you've taken.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rich Bircher. I live at 1460 Stoneham Street. I just wanted to mention specifically the concerns that I have with the project. The first is the traffic, specifically in the community that's off of Coal Creek Drive. From the traffic studies that I found, the average, I guess, daily traffic that's going to be coming through there is additional, once it's completed, will be 4,000 cars per day, 4,000 vehicle trips. So you can imagine there's no cars coming through there now, and it's going to be 4,000, when it's completed. So for me, that's a big effect on my life there. So I wanted to mention that, and then there's also right off of Coal Creek Road, there's Akron and Waldona, and that's currently used by a lot of people to cut through from Coal Creek to 88th. And I have a feeling that if no connection is made between the east side of the town center and 88th, that people are just going to be cutting through there. It's going to make their communities a lot worse for them. I mean, it's pretty bad now. So then the other thing I had to comment on was the building heights, specifically along McCaslin, where the circle is going to go into, I think it's Main Street. I'm wondering how well the people are going to be able to see into the town center as they're driving up and down McCaslin, because the buildings along there are going to be 3 stories tall, roughly. Currently, I think the biggest buildings in Superior, the Key Bank building and the Discovery Park, those are roughly three stories. So if you can imagine 3 stories along that side of McCaslin, and I think they're going to probably block any views into the town center. So I actually think that the area that should be kind of given preference on what people see is when they come in Superior is the northern edge of the town center where it faces Coal Creek. So if someone's coming in from 36 up going south on McCaslin, they're going to see, I think what the plans show now is just going to be pretty much the backs of the residential units. So I think the view in that area should be given a priority in what's presented to the people as they enter Superior. So those are my views.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor Muckle, trustees. I'm Malcolm Fleming, city manager in Louisville, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Town manager Magley as well. It's especially gratifying to see Trustee Williams here tonight after your surgery. I like the comments from the folks about Louisville's ranking by Money Magazine. One of the reasons we think we're great is because we are right next to Superior.
Well done.
As Matt noted, we've talked about this proposal a couple of times, and I appreciate the collaborative spirit in which you've entertained our comments. As Matt also noted, I've sent a couple of letters to you concerning the development proposal and the requirements of the 1997 and 2005 intergovernmental agreements that include specific requirements regarding this development proposal. I'm here tonight to ask that you include those letters specifically and the attachments in your record, so that's part of the development approval process. And I've got, just in case, I've got extra copies for each of you. I did want to note that the intergovernmental agreement requires that the development approval include specific requirement that there be at least 250,000 square feet of retail development as part of the proposal. Furthermore, it also includes a requirement that there be a phasing plan so that the retail development is completed and certificate of occupancies issued in advance of specified levels of residential development occurring. We do believe this development has the potential for significant positive impact for both Superior and for Louisville. We do have some concerns about the flex space and how that would be applicable under the terms of the intergovernmental agreements. But we look forward to working with you on hammering out some details to ensure that it does require or comply with the terms of the intergovernmental agreement. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for, I know that you weren't responsible for this, but loaning your city so we can actually have our meeting here, so thank you.
Well, I do look at this facility as serving both communities. We know all of your students support it as well as our own, so thank you, and the parents behind all those students. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Chris Lockram. I'm the youth hockey director for the Boulder Hockey Club. One of the things that I'd like to talk about is the economic impact. There's no question that we are maxed out. We physically cannot handle more hockey players at this point, and we haven't even touched the iceberg of starting a brand new Lady Rough Rider program. Our intention is to expand youth hockey in this area to where we have as many girls playing hockey as we do boys, and we can't even go there without a new facility. I don't think that that's in question. One of the things I'd like to talk about, I was a 6-year resident of Aspen, Colorado, and I spent time as their youth hockey director. We had a 3-weekend tournament called Fall Face-Off, and the economic impact of that tournament was studied by the town of Aspen. We had 3 weekends, 30 teams per weekend, 90 teams, and they estimated that $1.7 million came into the town of Aspen based on an average family of 4 spending hotel, food, and a little bit of actual spending just buying touristy stuff. But that's only one youth hockey program. And if you talk about the Rough Riders coming in who are they do showcases on a national stage. So the impact of them being involved in this and us is enormous. And I mean, that study is available from the town of Aspen. You can ask their town manager, and they donated $40,000 of ice. We didn't have to pay for it. One of the things about ice hockey is that it's known to be an expensive sport, and one of the ways that we can keep the cost down is by fundraising. The best fundraisers are hockey tournaments, and if we were able to hold big tournaments like this, we could keep the financial burden of families in this town so that hockey can become more affordable. The sky's the limit with this new facility, and I would like everyone to consider the economic impact of all the people from all over the country that would be visiting the town of Superior. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Dana D'Souza, Ryan D'Souza, and Kevin Ryan.
Good evening, Dana D'Souza, 1752 Eldorado Drive. I'm trying to think of something that I can really add here that hasn't been said already, because there's been a lot of really great comments here. I think, again, looking back at the vision we had as a town board member, I see the pictures up there, and I do get excited about when we were coming up with these plans, what would we really have there? But again, we have to look back, aside from all the pictures and the great things that we think can happen there, it developed from a need. And it really is a need that we have in town to balance not only certain public amenities, but specifically those commercial needs that we have in town. As I think Karen had said, it, our retirement fund for the town. We have to keep that in mind. We have something that's really unique there, that piece of property, a large developable piece of property along the 36 corridor. There aren't many of those left. That's not going to become something that is not valuable in the future. However, we also have an opportunity here with a great mix of people that have come together, that are willing to work and do a lot of things here. And I think it's a great time to take advantage of that. The only thing that one of the biggest things that I see here is with the plan is that, again, with the flex space that's being offered, it has a potential to be mainly a housing development. And that's a big concern for me. What other community have we had recently that's been developed in Superior that was mainly houses that we gave money to develop? Where does that happen in Boulder County? We don't need to, for housing development, give away money. We're talking to the tune of $145 million in tax-deferred financing or tax incentive financing. We don't need to do that for housing development. And really, if you look at a lot of the other communities around here, we don't need to do that for a town center either. So, you know, I think that we've heard a lot of comments about how nice the developer is, and I'm sure you're very nice people, and I'm happy that you're going out in the town, but really you're here to make money. Well, the town needs to make money too. That's why we have this. We have to make money for ourselves off of this project. We don't need more people for the sake of people. We can spend a lot less money and develop a little community center or develop something else for the hockey rink. We need this to make money for our town for the future, to preserve our town and for the people living here. And I guess one of the comments made before about one of the developments like Calamonte, it failed and it didn't hurt the town. Well, we didn't pay for them to develop. They didn't use TIF. Okay. The developer mentioned that they would be paying for the infrastructure but would like to be reimbursed. Well, and that would be reimbursed by the people who are living there. That is going to be a huge burden, $145 million for those people and businesses that will be living there and working there. What happens if that fails? Who's going to pay? I'm not sure if the developer is going to take on that. I'm guessing that it's going to fall to the town if that fails. You're saying no, it wouldn't, that you'll eat that? I'm just guessing. So I'm saying that this is something that as our retirement for our community, I'm hoping that you will take a look at this as your retirement plan. If this were your retirement plan, how would you be treating this? Would you be asking a lot more questions? Would you be negotiating really hard? So a lot of what I've heard here is not, no, don't do this development. A lot of what I've heard is, please, please don't give away our town. Please make the adjustments needed. Please be tough negotiators on our behalf, on our town's future's behalf. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kevin Ryan. I live on Torreys Peak, on West Torreys Peak. For those of you who say that there wasn't much of an impact when Calamonte failed, I look at that failure every day outside my kitchen window and sort of get a bit frustrated. So it has impacted some of us. I think the planning and the visioning has all been great. I'm not sure I'm qualified to discuss the visioning. I think this is the first high school auditorium I've been in the last 26 years since I graduated high school. And I walked in and I said, wow, windows. And the person thought I was crazy that I commented on the windows. So I thought the first one was great. I thought the second one was great. I think the third improvements, I think those improvements have been very strong, and I'm sure that future iterations will continue to be strong. My concern, and I sent an email to the town distribution, which we'll also put on record today, is around the TIF financing. I don't think this is appropriate at all. We're talking about a tremendous amount of money. I read the original TIF intent. It's intended for blighted communities. We're talking about, I think, 125 acres that are really beautiful. We haven't been able to attract any developers, but as a few folks have commented, we have been in a recession over the last few years. This is not a blighted community. TIF financing is not appropriate for this. Secondly, people have talked about what is the downside, what could go wrong. I believe a lot could go wrong. If we are going to improve the public infrastructure and this development fails, the rest of the town will be accountable for those tax increases, for the increase in the public infrastructure when the TIF section does not have the incremental taxes to return the additional financing. I'm not a TIF expert. I'm trying to become a bit of an expert, but these are two questions that I don't believe have been sufficient. Are we talking about TIFs? If this is not a blighted community, and what is the risk? I see in bold on the town community center, there is no risk to the town. I'm not convinced of that if this fails. Third, I don't think that the details of the TIF financing have been worked out. And so there are monies, as I've read some other TIFs, that have been very well negotiated, where there are standard just increases in housing prices, where those incremental tax dollars don't go back to the TIF, only the investments go back to the TIF. So I would suggest that the TIF is not appropriate. If we do go forward with the TIF, I think it needs to be strongly negotiated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Turnen, Jane, Joe, Newsma and Lars Morales. Sorry.
My name's Jim Turner. I live in Rock Creekside. I'm going to apologize in advance for rambling because I've heard a lot of stuff going on. I'm not trying to cover new ground. From what I see of the conversation, it almost feels like we're in two parts of Superior. When you live on the Rock Creek side, we've got the community park, we've got Purple Park, we've got a green belt, we've got they have the AstroTurf field. We have, I don't know about you guys, but I live across the street in the apartments. And my daughter uses Safeway and the community park as a gathering place. And you go over there anywhere near Starbucks and Safeway, and it's just full of kids. Cars a day driving up McCaslin, and now we're going to start dropping another 4,000 people or more. If you look at 1,400 residences, 3 apiece, you're looking at 4,200 people right there, plus the businesses, all the employees, and everybody that's got to come into Superior. You're looking at taking the population of Superior and increasing it by 50%, virtually over the course of a few years. I brag to my friends today, Superior has 12,000 people, 27 miles of walking trails. I walk outside my front door, hit the walking trails, I walk for miles up to Purple Park back. It's beautiful, it's empty, it's quiet. I don't hear cars, I don't see people. I talk to other dog owners, we're walking around. It's relaxing. I grew up in San Diego, and I grew up in a little town in the east, Santee. Started off with 10,000 people, 100,000 people. The quality of life changed forever as soon as they started getting, and I'll use the word greedy, not being rude, but you start thinking, oh, I can use some money. We can build more things. We'll make more money. From what I've heard, the community center this town center you're trying to build is going to basically have to be built so it can pay for itself. I don't understand the need. You have no problems getting a hotel room. I've gotten discounts at the hotels in Louisville, no problem. I don't recall there being any issues with housing in Superior. I'd like to address the BV Ice thing. My daughter is an ice skater, a figure skater. We drive all the way over to Apex because there is no room, there's no private ice time for my daughter to use at BV Ice. Now we're talking about expanding BV Ice so that you can have a lot of hockey. I was like, well, my daughter's still driving to Apex, and I'm driving her over there, 2 or 3 times a week. I haven't heard anybody address that BV Ice is going to improve conditions for me. You drive over to Apex, and they've got a hockey rink, and they've got ice, and they share. You can actually get some time for ice skating. I don't understand, personally, I just don't understand what's driving this. The value of that land is never going to go down. They're not making it anymore. Why? What's the rush? What do we need a town center for? No reason for us to live in a community jam-packed with people, traffic, noise, and all the construction and everything that's going to take place over the course of the 20 years it takes to build this thing. I don't see how this benefits anybody who lives here at all. I honest to God do not see it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Newsma, 921 Sapphire Way. I've been a Superior resident for 10 years, and I'm glad I get to go after that guy. I got 2 kids, highly involved in the community, members of the Rock Creek Flyers, which is the swim team. I'm on the parent board. If you have trouble with your kids, get in touch with me after the meeting. Superior Mustangs, fabulous organization. Louisville Youth Baseball Association. And then Boulder Hockey Club. My son Andrew has played for Boulder Hockey Club across Colorado, including the Pepsi Center, World Arena, Northern Colorado Rinks, The Edge, Ice Ranch. He's played for Boulder in Phoenix, Arizona, Pelham, Ontario, Prior Lake, Minnesota. Ice hockey is a huge, massive draw. And you got to know that when you have a tournament quality rink, they're going to come. Boulder Valley Hockey has a reputation across the country for being a quality organization. Everywhere our teams play, those teams will come and play in Superior if we have a tournament quality rink. You add a swimming pool to it, it makes it fabulous. I mean, that'd be absolutely out of the world. in addition to hockey, with twice as much ice, you get more figure skating time. Hell, I even heard they were talking about getting some curling in there. Maybe we get an Olympic curler out of Superior. I support the Superior Town Center, and I ask that you all support it on August 19th. Please vote yes for step 1 in this process. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Cantliff, Colleen Callan, Stephanie Phillips, and James McGinnis.
Like a kid. My name is Colleen Callan. I live on Cedar Ridge in Superior. I've lived here for 8 years. And honestly, I don't want to study this whole thing and all the write-ups and everything else. I really want you to know in my family, my daughter hates the idea. My son thinks it's awesome. My husband and I, we really want you guys to make the decision. I mean, and I think a lot of us feel like that. Like, we really want you to pay attention. Like what Mrs. D'Souza said, I don't even know what that is, the funding for the tax breaks or whatever, but I just trust that you guys will pay attention to it, and that's what we really want from you guys. And I don't know enough to really weigh it, but I do have an opinion on the property. It's ugly. I mean, someone said it's pretty. I think it's a really ugly piece of property. If they built on it, I don't really think that would bother me at all. Like, it's just off to the side, and there's some cows every once in a while. It looks all dry and stuff. And it's terrible. And I want to address 2 things. Someone's talking about why we're not ranked up with Louisville, and I actually studied this. We don't have a library, and they give a lot of points to libraries. And my one wish is that they would put maybe a library annex in the area, because if you don't have a library, you lose a lot of points. So if you want to be ranked in one of the top communities. And when it comes to the schools, Superior has kind of aged out, and like a lot of our eggs are dried up. So, and actually the schools, my son's a 3rd grader, and actually the lower grades are actually like getting smaller. And so I don't know if that's really an issue if you have more children coming in, because we might age out, and sometimes what happens in a community like this is they shut down a school eventually. So I don't really think that's too much of an issue. So please, oh, and by the way, a much bigger issue is when they dig into the Superfund site that's like a mile from us. That to me is 1,000 times more stressful than whether or not they're going to put an apartment building next to McCaslin. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Phillips, and I am a 13-year resident of Superior, and wish I could address several things tonight, several points made tonight, but I'll go with some of the ones I'm most passionate about. For one, I just want to say about the schools, and to echo the person that just spoke, was that the population does fluctuate. And at the last PTO meeting I was at El Dorado, we didn't even have enough kindergarten enrollment to fill 4 classrooms of kindergartners. So, and it wasn't just that case at El Dorado as well. It was other schools were having the same issue. So, and our PTO meetings are very sparsely populated for a community that supposedly is so concerned about their schools. So another point I want to make, I'm a soccer mom, and I haven't heard really anything about soccer yet. And I'm very excited about the possibilities this town center brings for soccer. Both the outdoor fields and the indoor fields. Indoor facilities are in very, very short supply in this area. People go and wait in line hours before a facility opens when registration is so they can get a spot for their team. And I have friends that have been denied spots for their kids to play soccer in the winter because there's just not enough supply to meet the demand. And so you could bring in a number of families. So I guarantee that indoor turf will be booked if you brought it in here. I'm sure it would, because we need those facilities. And same with the outdoor fields. You have a tremendous space for soccer in this community in Marcelo Balboa, and I would be very excited to have the field space for my kids to play at, rather than me having to drive 40 minutes, 3 days a week for my kids to go practice. It would be lovely to be able to drive 5 minutes or even bike or walk to our fields. And then finally, what I wanted to end with is my hometown in Illinois had a very similar proposal in front of them a number of years ago, and some of the same concerns were voiced. Too much traffic, we don't need it, and sorry, I'm losing my thing. Anyway, and that they liked the open space, and it wasn't passed. And now that town is suffering tremendously financially. The plazas are empty, and businesses that spoke of being interested in coming into the community when this development was being spoken about have gone to other communities. And so my town has lost that opportunity to bring those businesses in forever. So I encourage you, we have a great opportunity in front of us, a developer that's willing to listen, and it sounds like take our comments into consideration. That doesn't happen with every developer. So I just encourage you not to let this opportunity pass us by. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Sheltikoff, 3919 South Torrey's. I owe some debt of gratitude, or at least some thanks. First of all, to Paul Nillis. I had spent maybe an hour and a half with Paul, some more time emailing back and forth. I thank him for his time, but I also thank him for the amazing job that him and the town staff have done in terms of ring fencing this debt and ultimately indemnifying the existing Superior residents from having much of any risk in this. Here we are in a post-Detroit bankruptcy era. Ultimately, Ranch Capital has the ability to go up to 9% in regard to financing this debt in terms of interest rate. That is quite a bit of debt, but ultimately, I did want to sincerely thank Paul Nillis for all his time, but also the quality work that they've done. I also thank the board. It's a tough job, it's a volunteer job, and I thank you for all your efforts. A lot of you have been at it for a long time, and thank you. I'd also like to thank Ranch Capital. It's quite clear that you've been listening to all the comments, both for and against, and you've put in a lot of effort. You've been here for quite a bit of time, even though you don't live here. You're looking to do all that you can. Obviously, you're a business, you have to make money, but you're doing all that you can to get to our vision. And so I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll just make a couple of quick comments in dissension. I like the idea. It looks glitzy, it looks glamorous. My only two concerns, one is I don't hear anyone talking about protecting the school system. You know, Boulder Valley School District representatives have mentioned that Monarch would be completely filled. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it impacts test scores, the quality of education. There are other factors in addition to just overcrowding, which nobody wants to seem to talk about. But I can talk about certain municipalities in the east with really good high-quality school districts, such as Short Hills or Darien. I can't talk to Cupertino, I can't talk to Atherton, but I imagine that people on the board of these municipalities look very carefully at developments, especially high-density residential developments, in terms of what is the impact, what could the impact be to the quality of the school system, what will happen to available resources, what will happen to test scores. Monarch was ranked, I think, in the top 1.5% in the nation in SAT scores. So ultimately, overcrowding and other issues, I'm not sure that any analysis has been done in this regard, and I just please ask you, consider the school system, protect the school system. I think the answer is to restrict them to only sell to empty nesters, definitely not to be able to rent to anyone, which I understand is a change to the plan, but I ask you to please do what you can, protect our fabulous, wonderful school system, as I think most other municipalities with a top quality school system would try to do. In terms of the TIF financing, my only comment is $145 million does seem like a lot, and we can do better. I'll just leave it at that, since I think a lot of comments have been made in that regard. But to the extent that we are fully protected, that if this debt is issued at 9% in a post-Detroit bankruptcy era, that it will not affect us at all. I guess it's a little unfortunate to what it'll do to the residents of Superior Town Center, but as long as the existing residents are protected, I suppose that that's all well with all the residents that are here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Osell from Cornerstone Orthopedics and Impact Sports. My group elected to have the fat Irish guy come and talk tonight. So I'm actually a resident of Erie, so I hope to soon be having this type of discourse for my town up in Erie, because I think that we will be hopefully be going through the same thing. I will tell you that the same thing in sports is just like development. Lost potential is like a black hole. Light that comes in doesn't escape, and I hope Superior doesn't miss this opportunity. Just hearing all the light that's blossoming from both sides of the table tonight is excellent, so don't become a black hole that just sucks it in and lets it all go away and disappears. I have been involved in discussions with other developers who sit across the table from me and my partners at Cornerstone Orthopedics, who have a significant investment in the families of this community. We've served this community for a long time, and Impact Sports that we're going to bring over from Broomfield, and we want to be in this community. The sole purpose of Impact Sports is to serve the youth of the community in many different arenas. Many of the developers over the last 7 years that I've sat across from the table with can't look me in the eye and tell me that they really have the community in their best interest. And I can honestly say that I've sat across from Randy both over at my practice and in my own home, and I truly believe that he has Superior's best interests at heart. I think that Cornerstone, combined with Impact Sports and Boulder Valley Ice, is really come together in the last several years about being really concerned about the youth in this community. And I appreciate the schools, because I grew up in a small town in Minnesota, and I understand the importance of education. I'm one of 8 from a farming family in Minnesota, and I understand the importance of education. And my children, Gabriel and Taylor, are the utmost in my family. And that's why I think that this development gives Superior, coming from Erie, my wife and I drive over to Louisville all the time because we want someplace to go. When I sit down and I think about what's going to happen in this community, I just get this big smile across my face, because I think it's going to be phenomenal. The city developers, which I've sat down with in the past, are really interested in what's going on here, and I think they put a lot of thought into it. I will leave tonight saying that that we are going to be in this community. We're going to be here forever. I think that again, I hope to be having this discourse in Erie soon. I think that the vibrance of this community, I don't want this community to become that black hole. I want the light to escape this community. I will leave you with one thing, and when I was sitting here tonight, I kept thinking about, and again, I'm a movie guy, and I was thinking about Morgan Freeman, and I thought about the last comment from Morgan Freeman from a movie called Shawshank Redemption. And it's like, and he says, we got to get busy living, or we got to get busy dying. And I think that Superior really has a great opportunity to get busy living and develop this community, and I wish you all the best of luck, and Cornerstone will be here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, James McInnes. I've lived here for a while, and I've participated in this process for a long time. And I've heard a lot of emotion tonight. A lot of people really want to play hockey. A lot of people really want to do impact sports. My kids do impact sports. They play volleyball. From a personal perspective, I don't have a dog in this fight. My house doesn't overlook the property. My kids play volleyball, not hockey. I stand to gain or lose nothing by the specifics of this development, except I've lived here for a long time. I call this place home. I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else. And it bothers the hell out of me that we're going to take what we've been looking at for 15 years trying to create, and we're going to jam it into a 6-month process because these guys said it's a good idea. $150 million to build houses with a commitment for 80,000 square feet of retail. Really? I'm shocked. I'm shocked that it's even on the table. I'm shocked that it got out of the Planning Commission. I'm shocked that we're here tonight discussing it like it's a viable plan. 80,000 square feet of retail is the entire commitment that I've seen for this plan. Has it changed to date? Did I miss something? We have an agreement with Louisville to create 250,000 square feet of retail. No questions asked. And yet, 80,000 square feet of retail is what this developer comes with. And yet, all night long, I've been hearing how committed this developer is to Superior. This developer has had the opportunity to look at the concept that we came up with for the town center. Is it the plan? No, of course not. There are commercial exigencies that dictate what needs to happen. But this developer also had the opportunity to know that we have a governmental agreement, an intergovernmental agreement with Louisville that demands 250,000 square feet of retail. What we get from this developer is Boulder Valley Ice. Awesome. Love to ice skate. And if I played hockey, I would go there. And if my parts were broken, and I think I have a pain in my shoulder, orthopedics guys. So maybe we can talk later. But we're getting Boulder Valley Ice and an orthopedics group where we're supposed to have 250,000 square feet of committed retail. And I understand that Paul has done a yeoman's work, and I understand that we all think this is viable, and the one-time tap fees will certainly make my water bill go down, and yay! Except, oops, what happens to my town if we build houses where my downtown is supposed to be? What happens to your town? And by the way, this doesn't come free. So you guys get together on the 19th, and by the way, this guy's asking for a PD plan amendment with no PD plan. So tonight is supposed to be the public's last chance to comment, and yet we have no PD plan. None to look at. Every iteration, every time I've come to one of these meetings, the plan is different. All of this comes with consequences, gang. You like your jobs, you like to be part of the community, you want to be our leadership, lead. Please lead. I don't get to do it from my house, and I bailed out on the Planning Commission after waiting for 15 years. My fault. Please lead. This is not the plan for our town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, we need to take a short break so we can change out the batteries.
All right. Appreciate that. So we're still in public comments, and Phyllis?
Lynn Minton, Bill Siri, Kevin Lapine.
Hello, I'm Kevin Lapine. I'm a Superior resident. I've been living in Superior for 16 years, and one of the things that brought us to Superior was a school, Superior Elementary School. I'm a meeting planner. My wife's a teacher. She's still teaching in Boulder Valley School District, so I think we're not concerned about the school district. I know open enrollment, there's a lot of kids open enrolled, so I think there's plenty of room for schools. And so I just wanted to read a paragraph to get this on the records, on the official records. So this is part of the... Because of these impacts to the school district, BVSD has made a request to the town and developer to assist with mitigation. This has brought about an informal agreement whereby the developer will dedicate a 2-acre parcel to the school district to be used as a regional early childhood education center. Such a facility could potentially free up preschool classrooms at Monarch K through 8 and allow that school to accommodate its future K through 5 enrollment growth. With this contribution, the school district is confident that this development will not have an adverse impact on the district. So that's for the record. Another thing I'd just like to talk about is I'm a meeting planner. I'm really excited about Ranch Capital bringing in another hotel. You know, pick a great hotel, one that's going to be a great partner that will really support Superior. So be very careful with that decision, with the hotel you bring in. The plan looks beautiful. It's going to bring in a ton of revenue into Superior. So thank you for that. And the other elements all look fantastic as we've gone over tonight. So really positive. I just can't tell you how much I support this and really look forward to the trustees all voting to support the town center. Thank you.
Thank you.
Regina Mulberg, John Allegranti, Dan Schlesingen.
Hello, my name is John Allegranti. I live at 3025 Huron Peak Place in Superior. And I guess one of the advantages of going late in the evening is everybody else you called up already seems to have left, so I get to jump right into the front of the queue here. One of the bad parts is, of course, it's hard to say too much that hasn't already been said at this point in the evening. I don't have any prepared statements. I think a lot of really good points have already been made. But I do think that there is value in speaking why I'm here, and if it's somewhat repetitive, then so be it. But I think quantity of comments, one way or the other, does matter. So I just have, I guess, two anecdotal comments I'd like to share with you. The first is, while I'm not wearing one of the green T-shirts, I am also a hockey player. And I do play at Boulder Valley Ice one night a week in a men's league, have for several years. And in fact, it wouldn't be a stretch to say that one of my criteria in choosing to settle in Superior with my family, I have two young daughters, a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, was the proximity to the ice facility. It's certainly a great amenity and something that I don't take for granted and hope to see continue in the community. The second is I routinely go to Louisville with my family. The downtown redevelopment there is nothing short of amazing. The whole, Lucky Pie, Sweet Cow, Rex, Waterloo, etc. experience is just a phenomenal downtown. And while I enjoy going there and spending lots of money on pizza and ice cream and beer and what have you, I would love to see a similar experience on this side of the highway in Superior. In fact, my 5-year-old, 7-year-old, they're not quite big enough to ride our bikes from upper south end of Rock Creek over to Louisville, so we actually drive the car down to the parking lot there by the ice arena, believe it or not, get the bikes out of the car, and then ride the path over to Louisville and eat pizza and ice cream, and then ride back to the car and drive up the hill, which seems a little silly, but pretty soon, they'll be big enough to ride down the hill on McCaslin and, more importantly, back up at the end of the night. And I would love to be able to have that go into into Superior, as well as Louisville. So again, just anecdotal comments. On a more serious note, there were a couple of good points made about residency, the high density residency, potential impact on the schools, traffic, the TIF financing, and how that'll be paid. Are we negotiating a strong enough bargain with the developers? I think those are all valid points. They're good points, and they need to be seriously considered. But I guess if I was looking at it from a 50,000-foot view, it seems to me that the potential benefits of this proposed town center far outweigh whatever cons or concerns or issues there may be, and I would hope that those could be worked through and addressed adequately. In the end, we can have a great town center that we can all be happy with, and not give up the quality of life or any impact on the schools or some of the other good points that were made. So in closing, I just say thank you very much for your time and effort and all the brain damage you've undoubtedly incurred in this process. Thanks to you gentlemen, and you've obviously put a lot of work into this. And I support the town center. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joe Eckes. I live at 705 East Wigan Street in Superior. And a couple of just real quick points. The goal here is to build the best Superior Town Center. And it sounds like hockey is going to be a part of that, but it's not the Superior Hockey Center. It's the Superior Town Center. So while there's been I feel like there's been a lot of talk tonight about the Superior hockey and everything related to that, but I just want to encourage everybody to focus on what's best for the town and how, it's about the current residents are a big part of that. And we still do not have a complete PD plan as required by the town code. That's been mentioned by a couple of other people in other meetings. And TIF financing for a residential development. Jeff Chu spoke a couple meetings ago, and I felt like he did a really good job explaining that, so I would encourage you guys to revisit that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janice Lawrence and Tom Ricker.
Good evening, Town Board. My name is Tom Ricker. I live at 2047 Graydon Court. Been a 16-year resident of Superior, and I currently serve on the Planning Commission. I'm here tonight because I'm very concerned about how this whole process sometimes goes and all the details we're getting bogged down in. I'm asking you, as the Town Board, to look at this deal and my favorite passion. That is to be leadership, progressive thinking, and looking outside the box. And I know that's really hard for a lot of people to do. In this day and age, people think that everything has to go by the old models, the old passions. We have a lot of them here echoed tonight, a lot of different interests and interest groups. I think what we need to do is we need to appreciate what Ranch Capital's come forth with, and they've tried to make things happen. It's a very difficult process being a developer. I know because I work with them all the time, and they all have different opinions. But what we're trying to do is create a character for this town. And this town needs something that people can grab onto, can appreciate, and people really understand what Superior is all about. We need fields for athletics. We need better schools for kids that might come or might not come. We need elderly housing for older people that want to stay here and want to retire in this community. There are a lot of great things Superior does. I ask you to look forward to the future and to see this as an opportunity to take something positive and move it forward. It's very hard to do when everybody's just sitting around bickering like this town sometimes does and gets bogged down with 15 years of history. And all I can tell you is you need to get up, you need to look at everything, you need to weigh all the options, and you need to make a decision that really counts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it. All right, so I think that we've run through the list of people that signed up, but if there's people in the audience who either missed the chance when their time was called, or if they have would like to speak and didn't sign up, this would be the time to do so. And if you haven't signed up, name and just location.
Joe Coleman, 1854 Cedar Ridge Circle. I think economically, socially, and demographically, the town center is a win-win-win for Superior. As a as a Rock Creek resident, I really see this as a buttress for our way of life in Rock Creek. See it protecting what we have, the beauty that we have, the school system, the ability for our kids and our families to prosper here. And I fully support the Town Center project as proposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ron Kenny. I've spoke to you before on another occasion. I live at 903 South Wally Court in Superior, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my wife, Jill. And, you know, I don't think anybody's opposed to progress. I think everybody would love to see a town center if it's done the right way. The concern that we have is the fact that we've had a number of proposals about the density of all the housing and everything that's being proposed, and I think that's going to create more issues than we ever thought or could even imagine is going to happen. If you ever lived in Atlanta, which I'm sure a lot of you people have lived in other cities like Atlanta, and understand the sprawl of houses and what comes with that, and coming out to Colorado and finding a place like Superior is like you died and went to heaven. Okay. In addition to that, it's my understanding that the open space and everything is my understanding that we're supposed to have a lot more open space than what's been proposed here. Under the town code, 30% of the acre must remain open space, which is about 51 acres. And certainly if you look at the plan that they propose, and nothing against the developer at all, because if I was in his chair, I'd feel the same and do the same thing he's doing. But certainly that's going to take away the majority of anything we had proposed that was going to remain as open space. So in essence, and in conclusion, all I'm saying is that think very, very carefully about this, because once it's done, it's done. And we can't go back at that point in time. $145 million, you got to be kidding me. Somebody's going to have to pay for that one way or the other. And unless it's done properly, a lot of people are going to be in dire straits in the future to come unless we find some way to do that effectively and financially in a better method. Thank you.
Thank you. Just no public comment?
Sorry. It's because it's 10 o'clock. That makes me look
Well,
serious.
I'm Juliet Lapine. I've lived in Superior for 16 years. I taught at Superior Elementary School, and I teach at Louisville, in Louisville and Coal Creek. For those of you who've known me, I've worn a T-shirt 3 times in my entire life. This is the 3rd time. So at first I was opposed to a town center because I know we really can't recreate Old Town Louisville. But once looking at everything and all the diligence that that our town has put forth, I think it's a wonderful idea. We need this. I'm not concerned about the schools being overcrowded. Superior has their incoming kindergarten class lowest they've had in years. El Dorado's the lowest, and Coal Creek is one of the lowest incoming kindergarten classes. So we're going to be fine there. So carry on. And now I get to take off the shirt.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm Rob Kursinski. We live at 1262 El Dorado Drive, and I'm actually unusual in the sense that we've only lived here a year and a half. So I've got a little bit different perspective. I just took a bunch of notes, and I've been madly trying to catch up on what's going on here. All this enormous amount of information has been very hard to assimilate, but I'm trying. We like the town center idea, the concept of it. We were looking at Louisville and Superior, going back and forth which we were going to. I work in Golden. We wanted to live in this area. We liked the school district. We've ended up finding a nicer house in Superior, so we bought over in Superior. My concern and my wife's concern in looking at this is several things. One is the impact on the schools, even though whoever that was just said it, she wasn't concerned. We are concerned. One of the reasons we bought in the area was because of the schools. $145 million in taxes, or however you put it, with 25 years to pay off seems enormous to me, given how prime that real estate looks to me. It just seems like a lot of money. I'm surprised it requires that much money of ours to develop it. That's my impression. A lot of housing, 1,400 units. My impression is that that's going to change Superior. That's just my knee-jerk impression, because that's a lot of people. We came out of Tucson. We're very familiar with the housing for the older people, and we like that idea. I'm disappointed to see there's only 50 units in there. I think, because that would reduce my concern, obviously, on the schools, the impact of the schools if you've got older people moving in who empty nesters or whatever. And I don't think 50 units is critical mass to make that work. I think it's got to be larger to create a community for the, you know, the retired, or however you want to call them. One comment I haven't heard a word about, one of the reasons we almost didn't buy in Superior is because of the ground over here, the bentonite. I haven't heard anybody say a word about concerns. If you're going to develop that area, it looks very soft to me. I'm concerned. Our house is on stilts. I'm overjoyed that it's not sitting right on the ground. I thought that was strange at first. Now I think it's a great idea. So I just want to raise that, because that's a lot of developing in there, and I know there have been problems in Superior associated with sticking slab or whatever on the ground and having the ground do stuff. A bit of concern about the traffic, just because there's going to be a lot more people coming through. Oh, one comment I wanted to make, and I don't know if I understood this correctly, but in talking about the Superior Marketplace, or whatever it's called, where Target and Costco are, from what I saw in the financial view graphs, it looks like $21 million of tax-related infrastructure was put in. And if I understand it correctly, Superior currently generates about $14 million of income. The retail puts $14 million into the town of Superior, basically, through taxes or whatever. It strikes me that that's, and most of that's from there. At least $8.4 million is, I think, from Target and Costco. So it seems like that was a really good investment. You put in $21 million, you got a lot of money back. Every year you're getting a good chunk of that money back. This thing's got $145 million, and you get $3.9 million a year back. That looks scary to me. That looks like a low return. I mean, maybe it's viable and all, but it just looks like a low return to me. This is not my field. I'm aerospace. This is not my field of expertise. And the other thing, well, two other things. One is the new people that are moving into this area are going to have the taxes levied on them to pay for this thing, supposedly. One question I've got is that housing affordable? I haven't heard anybody say what are the prices of these houses. They're going to have to pay, apparently, relatively high real estate taxes, if I understand this. I haven't heard anybody quantify what that means. And the other thing I was going to say, the last point, when people are coming in and talking about, you know, we drop our kids off, we go shopping in Superior, the thing that they systematically seem to be saying when I was listening to them is they go to three places. They go to Whole Foods, Costco, and Target. These are giant places that generate a lot of revenue. I'm just a little bit concerned about the turnover on the mom and pop places. You know, Juju's came in, we were waiting for it, and 6 months later it's gone. You know, there's a Japanese restaurant just came in. We're hoping they're going to do well. I have no idea. We're going to try and buy there to keep them in place. I'm just a little concerned that the retail is small mom and pop stuff. I just don't know. There seems to be a lot of turnover on that. I just don't know how sustainable that is. That's my concern. So that's it.
Thank you. Additional public comments?
I'll keep it brief. My name is Jim Conahan. I live at 1021 East Rogan Way. I play hockey at your rink. I've had since they opened up over there. I'm an adult hockey player, obviously. Well, I'm not afraid of the housing. You know, I've lived in Superior almost 20 years now. I'm not afraid of the additional housing. I mean, I think we need a more population base to support the mom and pop businesses that the previous speaker was just talking about. I mean, Chris, you and I have had this conversation standing outside of a business that's no longer there. The only concern I have about this is are we getting a good deal for $145 million in tax increment financing? You know, I'm not an expert on it. I have a, you know, I've studied this a little bit, but not to that extent that I could say that I totally understand it all. But just seems like an awful lot of money to give to a private development. So I'd caution you to pay close attention to that. And your attorney here is going to have a tough job writing a nice contract. So. Besides that, I would support it with the caveat that I really think we ought to pay attention to the financing aspect of it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mark Sires, and I live at 462 Blackfoot Street. I don't see this as a town in need of personality at all. I think it's got pizzazz and charm coming out the seams, and I adore it here. And I spent 8.5 years in Phoenix after having moved down from Aurora and passionately hated it. And I'm back and was done messing around. I love to explore the trails in Boulder County, and I was tired of driving up from Aurora, so I bought here. I'm very happy with my decision. I'm not happy to see us take a piece of real estate as prime as that one there, and I agree very heartily with the comment that is vanishing land that is very valuable, and to give out this kind of subsidy to have it developed. And the other thing that really horrifies me is what Boulder changed into. I left in the summer of 2003. All those brick condos and the development. I understand that growth is an important part of a community, but you can really change the character of a community in a way that's damaging, and it is almost impossible to come back from it. And this kind of old town, old Western charm just doesn't grow on trees. And having a bunch of 3 or 5 story brick multi-story buildings built right in the center of it for residences, I think is going to uglify it in a way that I haven't the words to describe. And I really hope that you'll consider the what we're trading for what we're getting and what that kind of impact on our community is going to be, because it's true. I've only been here for 9 months, but this is the kind of community I always wanted to live in, and I hope it doesn't change for the worse, and I'm gravely concerned. But I know you've done a lot of hard work, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Heather Craycraft, actually speaking as Executive Director of the Superior Chamber, if that's okay, because I know I passed on my turn earlier, but are you okay with that, Mayor?
I'm okay.
I'll make it short and brief in the constraints of time and the few people that are left here. The Chamber continues, as you hear me month in and month out, to continue to be that liaison with the businesses and to build the economic development arm of this community. You are well aware of those efforts. And I think with our economic development, Katie Press on hand and her speaking at one of the prior meetings, her points were loud and clear. I just wanted to point on a few points. The moment that the actual principal of this school called me after having met with Ranch Capital saying these guys are great, they're putting in a fantastic project, they've already met with me, they've asked my concerns from a school perspective, what can I do to help? So I just needed to add that 2 cents from a high school perspective. And I believe truly, from a chamber's perspective, that this project is vital to supporting the current business owners, whether they're small or large. Knock on wood, none of our large guys leave in the near future. And if they do, I know our economic development person is on it. Lastly, you've heard me say before, the hotel is vital. Whether it's a community event here in town, I would drool over the potential of having square footage under a roof where we could hold a community event like this. as well as all of those Boulder events that come to the campus at CU and overflow all the way up the 36 corridor. We continually hear from those chamber members that are part of the Superior Chamber that it is a complementing business. They complement each other, and when they're full, somebody's got to go somewhere. Why not make it here in Superior? Lastly, I have to say, I love all the people saying they're spending money here. I know you're excited to hear that. As the chamber, we love to hear that. But from a business perspective, we want to continue that. We want to supplement those business owners, whether they're small or big. A lot of small business owners are investing in the chamber, and we're working hard to help them through that process. And we're looking forward to helping the new ones, too. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm Michael, and I realize I'm probably the youngest person here by about 25 years, but I hope my word's being listened to a little bit too.
Last name, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, Sadeo. And as an athlete and person in the community, I think that having just a facility with so many opportunities for kids to be involved and enjoy the outdoors and like the street center and everything, it just looks like a lot of fun and something I'd want to be involved in. So just like coming as a young person, and I know it's a young community here, that I think it'd be a great idea. So that's all I got, but thanks.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Okay. Not seeing any. So let's see, a time check. We're here at 10:30. What I'd like to do, and we can talk about the timing, is to get a response from the applicant, developer. We could either do that tonight or we could do that at a subsequent meeting. I don't know if the board has feelings about this one or the other, or if the applicant has feelings about this one or the other. Board?
What would you like to do?
We're happy to do whatever the board prefers. We can.
So my thinking is that all good decisions happen earlier in the evening than late at night, is that I'd prefer to do this at a subsequent meeting, that you could do your response and we could do our questions at that time. And I'm thinking that maybe August the 5th would be a reasonable date. I don't know if that works for you.
That's
okay.
That's perfect.
And town staff, you're open to that. I see smiling down there.
It's my anniversary, but maybe I'll just bring my wife along.
Bring your wife. We will fet you.
We'll have dinner.
will have snacks.
You can have my spot. She can have my spot.
Matt, the 19th is my anniversary too.
Well, let's see. So the question is, why? What about the 12th, which would be an option? Except I'm not sure how much time is available during that meeting. That's a regularly scheduled meeting.
Right. There is time available on the 12th, but we can do the 5th as well. That's fine.
Okay. So I'll take the trustee Pennington.
I'm in favor of the 5th. I think we've got a lot of new details on the table, a lot, 50-some comments here to churn through, and there's a lot of good kernels that came out tonight, so I'd like to see us do the 5th and work through those. The 12th is plenty full.
Okay. Trustee Hansen?
Yes, if we're not going to continue on tonight, I would prefer the 5th too and get it done.
Trustee Cirilli?
I agree.
Okay.
My time is your time.
Wow. Thank you. So I understand Trustee Gurgurus' concern, but I think that I didn't hear from Trustee Williams. Does the 5th work for you?
Fine.
Okay. So I think that my recommendation is that we continue the public hearing, which is still open to a date certain, with that date being August the 5th, the time being 7 o'clock, and presumably at Town Hall?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be my suggestion, Mayor. That way we can broadcast it live and web stream it as well.
Okay. And that doesn't mean that necessarily that there wouldn't be additional comment on the, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but potentially could have additional comment on the 12th and the 19th. So I don't want to limit the opportunity for trustees to speak, so or give their input. So, sounds like the 5th. I'll entertain a motion for that. Trustee Williams, second by Trustee Gregorus. If I saw that pen correctly. Any additional comment? All in favor? So unanimous. That will continue to August 5th. Anything else to come before the board this evening?
No, ma'am.
Seeing none, meeting adjourned. I do really want to acknowledge everybody in the room. It's really a lot of work. I really appreciate